She hit send before she read the number. One digit off. One selfie in a ruby red bodycon dress. One caption, "Is this dress too short?" It was supposed to go to Olivia. It didn't. Naomi Bennett is 29, black. An architect in Manhattan, running a boutique studio that restores old industrial buildings into something alive. Tonight, that studio is almost dead. A past due notice on the floor. Coffee tin cash on the counter. The Ashford Gala in 90 minutes. Her last real shot to save everything she built. She zips the wrong dress. She snaps the mirror. She types Olivia's number too fast. On the other end, an encrypted line lights up in a penthouse across the city. Kang Ji-hoon reads it once. 6'3", black suit. A koi tattoo running down the left side of his neck, disappearing under his collar. They call him the Quiet One, chairman of a private equity fund on paper, something colder underneath. He types 4 sentences back. Change right now. A lioness does not wear the prey's clothes. Downstairs in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, a black SUV is at her curb. A stranger hands her a midnight emerald dress, and emeralds she cannot afford to touch. He offers his arm at the gala entrance like he has been waiting for her his entire life. She doesn't know yet who he really is. She doesn't know yet what he already did to put her in that room. And she has no idea what is coming at 2 a.m. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Naomi counted the bills a second time because the first count had been a lie she told herself. 4,200 and change. She spread the money across the concrete floor of the studio in 3 uneven rows and pressed the coffee tin down on the smallest row so the drafts from the broken vent wouldn't scatter it. The tin still smelled of Colombian roast. She hadn't bought coffee in 6 weeks. The past due notice sat on the drafting table above her, weighted by a mechanical pencil. Con Edison. Red bar across the top. She could read the number from the floor without her glasses. $7,892. She was $3,000 short on the electric alone. Her phone buzzed on the drafting table. A text from the landlord. She didn't read it. She turned the phone face down. It buzzed a second time, then a third. She let it. She'd been founding architect and sole owner of Bennett Studio for 6 years. Adaptive reuse of historic industrial buildings. Cast iron in Soho. A grain elevator in Red Hook. A brass foundry in Long Island City. Her work had been in architectural record twice. Her name had been on a short list she hadn't won, but hadn't needed to win. 6 months ago, her junior partner, a man she'd hired on a handshake and trusted the way a woman trusts the person who holds the other end of a rope, had walked out with a client list, a signed retainer, and the mid-tier of her project pipeline. She had spent 3 of those 6 months trying to understand how it had happened. She had spent the other 3 trying to survive it. The Water Street Mill was what was left. The Tribeca studio around her had been a working architecture office 9 months ago. 4 desks, 2 junior drafters, a plotter that ate paper like a hungry animal, a wall of adaptive reuse renderings pinned in a grid. Now it was 2 desks pushed together, an empty plotter cabinet, and a wall where the pins remained but the renderings had been taken down and rolled into cardboard tubes leaning in the corner. She'd taken them down herself, at night, because during the day she still needed to believe. Naomi picked up the bills again and folded them into an envelope. She wrote the amount on the front in block letters. Then she wrote it a second time on the inside flap, because she didn't trust her own handwriting anymore. Behind her, the freight elevator groaned. Olivia came in with 2 coffees and 1 paper bag, and the particular walk she used when she had bad news she was going to deliver as good news. Cream oversized blazer, straight-cut trousers, brown loafers, small gold hoops. Her natural curls had been redefined that morning. Naomi could smell the leave-in from 6 feet away. Olivia stepped over the money on the floor without looking at it. "You're on the floor," Olivia said. "I'm counting. You know how much you have." "I'm counting anyway." Olivia set the coffees on the drafting table, moved the past due notice aside with 2 fingers, and put a croissant on top of it. The croissant left a butter mark on the red bar. Naomi watched the butter spread and did not move. "Ashford," Olivia said. Naomi stayed on the floor. "Ashford Gala. Friday, 9 o'clock. I got you in." "You didn't get me in." Nobody gets into Ashford. I got you in. Naomi lifted her eyes. Olivia held out a small ivory card between two fingers like it was a piece of glass. Heavy stock. Blind embossed monogram. No name written on it. Naomi took it and turned it over. The back was blank except for a single line of copperplate. +1, Ms. Bennett, 9 o'clock. How? A favor. From who? A favor I called in. Naomi turned the card between her fingers. Ashford was the annual private capital gala of the Northeast. Family offices, pension trustees, 3 or 4 sovereign-adjacent funds. The kind of room where a project like hers, an 8-story former textile mill on Water Street with a 16-month timeline and a 9-figure adaptive reuse plan, got saved in one handshake or died in one snub. Marion Delacroix would be in that room. Everybody knew Marion would be in that room. Olivia, don't. Whose favor? Don't ask me that today. Ask me Monday. Monday I'll tell you the whole thing over drinks, and by Monday it won't matter, because Marion will have signed. Naomi stood up. The bills stayed on the floor. She walked to the window and looked at nothing in particular, which is what people do when they need the reflection of the glass to hold their face steady. Water Street glittered wet. A delivery cyclist braked hard and swore in Portuguese. This is the last thing, Naomi said to the window. I know. Marion signs the mill. We make payroll for the year. Marion doesn't sign. I fire you Wednesday. You wouldn't fire me. You'd starve first. I'm already starving. Olivia came up behind her. She didn't touch her. She stopped one step off, close enough that Naomi could hear the small click of her earring against her jawline when she turned. Wear the emerald, Olivia said. The one from your grandmother's closet. I sold the emerald. You didn't. I sold the pearls too. There was a pause. Olivia inhaled once through her nose. Naomi watched her partner's reflection recalculate everything, and she loved her for how quickly she did it. Wear anything, wear the ruby, wear the one you can zip up alone. Just be there at 9, be there at 8:45, be there at 8:30, and drink water in the coat room. Olivia. Naomi. If this doesn't work, it works. Wear the red one, Olivia said. You have a red one. I have a bad red one. A bad red one is better than the black one you'll pick if I leave you alone. I'm going to pick the black one. I know. Olivia left the studio at 4:18. Naomi bent, gathered the bills, put them back in the coffee tin, and set the tin behind the plotter cabinet where the cleaning service, if she'd still had one, wouldn't have thought to look. She locked the door twice. She rode the freight elevator down and walked the 11 blocks home because the subway cost $2.90 and she was in the habit now. On Hudson, she passed the wine bar where she used to take clients on Thursdays. 2 women at the window laughed with the ease of people whose rent had cleared. Naomi did not slow down. She thought about the mill on Water Street, the 16 cast-iron columns on the ground floor, the pressed tin ceiling still intact on the 4th. She thought about the rendering she had rolled up in the tube in the studio. She thought about the way Marion Delacroix reportedly ran her family office. 3 questions in the first 5 minutes, and if you couldn't answer the 3rd one cleanly, you would never be invited to answer the 4th. She had the 3rd answer. She'd had it for a year. She just needed someone to ask. Her apartment was above a wine shop on Franklin. 2,200 square feet of pre-war floors and 1 closet of clothes that used to matter. She stood in front of the closet with the door open and the lights off. The streetlight from Franklin came through the window and lit the hangers in a slow sweep as a bus passed. Cream, navy, ivory, black, ruby. The dress hung on the left side, pushed to the back where she kept the mistakes. She'd bought it 3 years ago for a bachelorette weekend in Miami she never went to. Bodycon, short, the kind of ruby that looked black indoors and screamed under a flash. The tags were still on it. She'd told herself twice that she would return it, and both times she had missed the window. She pulled it off the hanger. The tags snapped. The dress zipped on the first try, which surprised her, and stopped an inch below where it should have stopped, which did not. She turned in front of the mirror. The hem sat mid-thigh. The neckline sat mid-chest. Under the bathroom light it looked like exactly what it was, which was the wrong dress for the right room. She checked her phone. 7:14. The gala started at 9. The car she couldn't afford was supposed to be at her door at 8:30. She raised the phone. She held it at the angle women hold phones when they need another woman to tell them the truth. She took the photo. The reflection caught the tags on the floor, the empty jewelry tray, the corner of the past due Con Edison notice she'd walked home with, because she couldn't stand to leave it at the studio. All of it in one frame. She typed the caption with her thumb. "Is this dress too short?" She hit Olivia's contact. She sent it. She didn't check the send. She turned to the closet because there was a black slip dress in there somewhere, and if she could find it, she could stop breathing like a person about to drown. She was on her knees at the bottom of the closet when the phone buzzed on the sink. She reached back without looking. Read on the way up. The message was not from Olivia. The name at the top of the thread was a string of characters that looked like a security handle. No profile photo. The message underneath was 6 lines of gray text, evenly spaced. No autocorrect signature. No ellipsis. No delay bubble to soften it. Change right now. A lioness does not wear the prey's clothes. Downstairs in 10 minutes. Black SUV. Do not bring the phone in the red dress. Bring yourself. Naomi stood with the phone in one hand and the strap of the ruby dress in the other, and read the 6 lines 3 times. She scrolled up. There was no thread above. This was the first message ever exchanged on this line. She scrolled to her sent message. Her photo sat there, delivered, read at 7:16 p.m., time-stamped in a font she didn't recognize. She checked the recipient number. She had mistyped 1 digit. She sat on the closed lid of the toilet. She put the phone face down on the counter and then she picked it up again, because a phone face down when you are alone is worse than a phone face up. She read the 6 lines a 4th time. The sentence in the middle did something to the back of her throat that she couldn't name. A lioness does not wear the prey's clothes. No one had ever written a sentence like that to her. She should have deleted the thread. She should have blocked the number. She should have called Olivia and laughed until the ceiling stopped moving. She did none of those things. She stood up. She unzipped the ruby dress and let it slide off her hips and stepped out of it and stood in the bathroom light in a slip and bare feet and looked at herself. And the woman in the mirror looked back with the face of a person who had just been handed an instruction from somewhere she had not applied to. The phone buzzed a 2nd time. 7 minutes. She moved. She didn't decide to move. Her body moved and her mind followed. She washed her face in cold water and did the eyeliner with the small brush and the deep wine lipstick that she'd been rationing for 3 months. She pinned her collarbone bob behind one ear and unpinned it. She stood in her closet in the slip and pulled hangers aside and stopped, because whatever she owned was not going to be right, and the man on the other end of the 6 lines already knew that. 6 minutes. She put on the black slip dress she'd been kneeling for. She put on flats. She grabbed the clutch, the keys, the invitation, and her ID. She paused at the door. She went back and picked up the ruby dress off the bathroom floor, and folded it, and put it in the trash under the sink, and closed the cabinet. She rode the elevator down. Franklin was wet with the kind of light rain that isn't rain, just the memory of rain the sidewalk hadn't finished forgetting. She stepped out under the wine shop awning and looked left, then right. Nothing. A yellow cab drifted past with its light off. A woman walked a Weimaraner. A man on a city bike ran the red at Varick and no one honked. The SUV came from the wrong direction, which is how she knew it was hers. It came south on Franklin against the one-way, slow, headlights off, and stopped in front of her building at an angle that took up exactly the width of the loading zone. Black, new, tinted so dark she couldn't see the outline of a head behind the wheel. The rear passenger window slid down 4 inches. A woman's voice said her name. Ms. Bennett. Not a question. Naomi stepped off the curb. The window slid up. The rear door opened from the inside. She got in. The woman in the back seat was Korean, mid-30s. Jet black hair pulled into a chignon so low and sleek it lay against her nape like paint. Black silk blouse, black trousers, black flats. A slim black leather portfolio balanced on her knees. She wore a small silver stud in each ear, and an earpiece so discreet Naomi didn't see it until the woman tilted her head to listen. Han Seo-yeon, the woman said. She did not offer her hand. I dress him. I dress you tonight. The interior of the SUV smelled of leather and the faintest cold trace of some cologne Naomi did not recognize. a scent that was less a fragrance than a temperature. A garment bag hung from the hook above the far window, floor length, opaque, zipped. On the seat between them lay a flat wooden case the size of a hardcover book. "Where are we going?" Naomi said. 10 blocks. You'll be dressed in 5. Dressed here. Here. Naomi looked at the driver. She could see only the back of his head. Close cut, high fade, no motion. "Who?" she said. "Who sent the message?" Han Seo-yeon did not answer. She unzipped the garment bag halfway. Midnight emerald spilled into the seat between them. Italian silk so heavy it had weight, cut with architectural lines and a slit that started at the ankle and stopped where a slit ought to stop. The dress did not shimmer. It absorbed the streetlight and gave nothing back. Naomi did not touch it. "I can't accept." "You'll accept." "I don't accept dresses from men whose names I don't know." Han So-yeon looked at her for the first time. Her eyes were steady and gave nothing. "You accepted the invitation from your partner without asking whose favor it was." Naomi opened her mouth and closed it. "Change," Han So-yeon said. "We have 8 minutes." The SUV pulled off the curb. The privacy screen behind the driver was already up. Naomi hadn't seen it rise. Han So-yeon handed her the dress and turned to look out the far window with the courtesy of a woman who had done this before. Naomi undid the slip in the moving car and pulled the emerald over her head, and the silk fell down her body like water finding a channel it had already carved. The dress fit. It fit the way a dress fits when someone has spent 3 weeks looking at photographs of you they were not supposed to have. Han So-yeon opened the wooden case. Emerald, diamond. A choker of 6 graduated stones set in white gold with a discreet drop, 2 studs, a bracelet the width of a pencil. Nothing on the ring finger. Han So-yeon fastened the choker at the back of Naomi's neck without touching her skin. "The sandals are at your feet." Naomi looked down. Gold, discreet. Her size. "How do you know my size?" "He knows." Han So-yeon closed the wooden case. She slid it into a compartment under the seat that Naomi had not seen open. She smoothed the emerald silk once, low on Naomi's hip, with the professional detachment of a woman who had dressed brides and defendants and the wives of men who owned buildings Naomi had renovated. Her hand was small and warm and did not linger. The shade of green, Han So-yeon said, was chosen for the Ashford lighting. "You will read as jewel-toned, not as a color. Everyone else will be black or ivory. You will be the only one they remember." That is a lot to promise. It is not a promise. Naomi's throat went dry in a specific way. She had not spoken a name, and Han So-yeon had not spoken a name, and the pronoun sat in the car between them like a third passenger. Deep down, Naomi understood that she had crossed a line the moment she'd stepped off the curb, and that whatever came next, she would have to survive on her own footing or not at all. The clutch on Naomi's lap was hers, black, structured, the one she took to meetings. Han So-yeon reached over and took Naomi's phone out of it. She powered it off. She slid it into a small padded pocket built into the door. "Not tonight," she said. "You'll get it back at midnight. I need my phone. You need to not need it for 3 hours." The SUV slowed. Uptown lights climbed the tint on the windows in warm stripes. They had come further than 10 blocks. Naomi had not felt the distance. "When we stop," Han So-yeon said, "he'll be at the curb. He'll offer his arm. You take it. You do not look at his face until you are inside the door. Inside the door you look at him once. That is all he needs." "Why?" "Because it will be watched." "By whom?" "Everyone." The SUV stopped. Han So-yeon did not move. She was listening to the earpiece. She nodded to no one Naomi could see. She reached across Naomi's lap and opened the door on Naomi's side from the inside with a motion that suggested she had opened doors this way for a long time. "Ms. Bennett." Naomi got out. The Ashford building rose above her in 6 stories of limestone and iron. She'd studied the facade in a graduate seminar. She had never been inside. The porte-cochere held 2 other cars in the queue behind hers, and the doorman was already halfway to the SUV with a black umbrella that he did not open because it wasn't quite raining, and he understood the difference. The man on the curb was not the doorman. He was tall enough that she felt the shift of the light before she saw him, the way you feel the light shift when a building steps between you and the sun. Black bespoke suit, long anthracite overcoat that fell perfectly at his knee. White shirt so white it looked wet, black silk tie, perfectly polished Oxfords catching the sodium lamps. He did not smile. He offered his arm. Naomi remembered Han So-yeon's instruction. She did not look at his face. She looked at his sleeve, and the platinum cuff of a watch, and a signet ring on the little finger of his left hand, and the small clean seam of the overcoat where it met the shoulder. She placed her fingers on the inside of his elbow with the lightest pressure she could manage, and still be sure of the touch. His forearm did not move. They walked 6 steps to the door. The doorman pulled it open before they reached it. Warm air came out. The room beyond was pale gold and low lit, and it hummed with the particular register of 200 people who had all been told to be quiet. She crossed the threshold. She looked at him. He was already looking at her. Deep almond eyes, black in this light, unreadable, in a way that was not empty but full. A stillness, so complete that anything moving in it would show. Sharply sculpted jaw, high cheekbones, a face designed to be difficult to remember and impossible to forget. The overcoat sat open now and she could see, just under the collar of his shirt on the left side, the thin black line of a tattoo climbing his neck. Coy, traditional, rising. He tilted his head 1 degree. Ms. Bennett. His voice was lower than she'd braced for, barely accented. You are the man from the message. I am. You don't know me. I do. He did not elaborate. He did not need to. He turned his eyes from her face to the room, and she felt the release of his attention as a small physical drop of temperature, and she understood in that half-second that she had just been examined by a person who had already decided what he thought. Marion Delacroix is at the second window on the left, he said. Naomi's head did not move. Her eyes did. Marion, silver-white bob, Chanel-cut charcoal jacket, pearl choker, champagne flute in one hand, sapphire ring catching the chandelier. Talking to 2 men Naomi did not know, and 1 man she did, Bradford Whitaker III. Navy brioni too tight at the waist, collar open, no tie, gold Rolex, pink pocket square. She would have recognized the pocket square from a moving train. Naomi knew Brad Whitaker the way she knew a pothole on a familiar street. He had come into her office 2 years ago with a checkbook, a pitch about monetizing the aesthetic of her adaptive reuse pipeline, and a hand that had drifted from a handshake to her lower back inside 11 seconds. She had removed the hand. She had refused the check. He had left smiling. Men like Brad left smiling because leaving with a scowl would have cost them the story they preferred to tell about themselves later. She had not seen him again until tonight. Brad had not seen her. Marion had. Marion's pale gray eyes found Naomi across the room, held for a full breath, and then, very slightly, Marion nodded once at the man beside her before she went back to her conversation. She had not nodded at Naomi. She had nodded at him. Naomi felt her fingers tighten on his sleeve before she had decided to tighten them. He did not react to the pressure. He simply guided her 1 step further into the room and lowered his voice a fraction of a degree so that only she could hear. Do not thank me tonight. Do not thank me tomorrow. Do the work. What work? The work you came to do. The chandelier above them dropped a small square of light across the koi at his throat, and she saw, for 1 clean instant, the whole tattoo. The black scales, the arched back, the eye of the fish set exactly at the pulse point of his neck. A waiter drifted past with a tray of champagne. He did not offer them a flute. He was a man who had been told, at some point earlier in the evening, which 2 people at Ashford were not to be approached from the left. Naomi noted it. She noted also that the 2 men flanking the far wall were standing in the specific posture of men who were not guests, and that Han So-yeon was no longer beside her, but she could feel, without turning, the exact distance at which the woman had been placed. He turned her toward Marion. He said her name once, quietly, into the space between them, in a way that was not a question and not a greeting, but the sound of a door being unlocked from the other side. Naomi. She stepped into the room. Marion Delacroix did not stand up when Naomi crossed the room. She did something rarer. She set her champagne flute down on the marble side table, turned her chair a 1/4 inch, and looked, just looked. In a room full of people trained to be seen, being looked at like that was a kind of currency. Ji-hoon released Naomi's arm the moment she stepped into Marion's orbit. He did not follow. He took 1 measured step back, hands folded low, and became furniture. Expensive furniture. Furniture with a koi tattoo climbing the left side of its neck under a black silk collar. "Miss Bennet," Marian said. Her voice was thin and precise, like a fountain pen. "Sit." Naomi sat. The emerald dress moved with her without complaint. The chair was low, upholstered in dove-gray velvet, and it forced her to angle her knees to one side. She did not smooth the skirt. She did not touch her hair. Marian noticed she did neither of these things. "You came in on the arm of a man who does not usually offer his arm," Marian said. "I noticed that too." "Did you?" "I noticed the room noticing." Marian's mouth moved. It was not a smile. It was the memory of one. "Tell me about your studio." Naomi did not begin with credentials. She began with a building. She named a 19th century paper mill in Yonkers that everyone else in the room would have called a teardown, and she described the ceiling trusses the way another woman might describe a lover's shoulders. She said the word adaptive once, because it was the word Marian's foundation used in its own literature, and then she never said it again. She spoke about load paths and about tenants who had never been asked what they wanted. She spoke about numbers. She let the numbers land on their own, without underlining them. Marian listened. Two men in navy suits drifted toward them, sensing warmth, and Marian lifted one finger without looking. The men drifted away. Somewhere behind Naomi's shoulder, a woman laughed too loudly. A waiter passed. Ji-hoon did not move. "How much of your equity is still yours, Miss Bennet?" "All of it." "After the Chen dissolution?" Naomi's breath caught for half a beat. She had not said Chen. She had not planned to say Chen for another 20 minutes at least. Marian Delacroix already knew about Chen. Marian Delacroix already knew there had been a dissolution. Marian Delacroix had done her reading before the champagne was poured, and she wanted Naomi to understand that she had. "All of it," Naomi said again. "I bought his share back at book value." "With what?" "With the rest of my life, more or less." The memory of a smile came back to Marian's mouth and stayed a fraction longer this time. She reached for the champagne flute without looking at it. Her fingers found the stem on the first try. "I have a project," Marian said. "The trustees are cowardly, and the architects they keep recommending to me are worse. I need someone who is not afraid of a landmark board and who does not confuse restraint with cowardice. Send me your deck on Monday. Not your assistant's deck, yours. 9 a.m. 8. Marian inclined her head 1 degree. It was a dismissal and a benediction at the same time. Naomi rose. The emerald dress moved with her again. She had been in Marian Delacroix's presence for less than 9 minutes. She had a meeting. Ji-hoon was already at her elbow before she remembered to look for him. He did not congratulate her. He did not ask what had been said. He steered her by a 1/4 inch of pressure at the small of her back toward the long window at the north end of the ballroom, where the crowd was thinner and the noise fell off, and only then did he speak. "Breathe." She realized she had not been. Her chest unlocked. Air came in cold from a vent overhead and tasted like nothing. "Marian Delacroix does not ask twice," he said. "Do not be late." "I am never late." "I know." She turned her head. He was already looking at her. His eyes were the color of a river under ice, dark and moving and unreadable, and there was nothing warm in them, and there was nothing cold in them either. There was only attention. She had been looked at by men her whole life. She had never been looked at like she was a problem someone was solving in real time. "How do you know?" she said. He did not answer that. He looked past her shoulder, his jaw tightened by the width of a hair. A hand landed on her elbow. Not on her sleeve, because the emerald dress had no sleeves. On her elbow. Skin on skin. The fingers were pink and thick, and belonged to a man who had never in his life been told no by anyone whose opinion he considered to matter. She smelled the whiskey before she saw the face. "Beautiful," the voice said. "Absolutely beautiful. Bradford Whitaker. Whitaker Capital. You must be the architect everyone's been whispering about." Bradford Whitaker III had a soft chin working slack toward a second and small pale blue eyes that had already decided what they wanted. His navy brioni was cut a 1/4 size too tight. His collar was open. The pink silk pocket square shouted from his breast. The Rolex on his wrist caught the chandelier and threw a bright yellow disc across the front of Naomi's dress. He did not let go of her elbow. Naomi looked down at his hand. She looked back up at his face. She said nothing, because she had learned very young that a black woman shouting no in a room like this only made the room louder. She waited. That was her first move. She waited for the man to feel his own hand on her. Brad's fingers tightened a fraction. He mistook her stillness for permission. Ji-hoon stepped forward one measured pace. He did not raise his voice. He did not raise his hand. He spoke 6 syllables in Korean, low, almost gentle, almost bored, and Han So-yeon was there before the last syllable finished. Naomi had not seen Han enter the ballroom. Han had been in it the entire time. Han in her black silk blouse and her low sleek chignon and her earpiece and her slim black portfolio. Han placed 2 fingers on the inside of Brad's wrist, placed them, did not grip, and Brad's hand came off Naomi's elbow as if the elbow had grown teeth. "Mr. Whitaker," Han said, her English soft and edgeless, "your table is on the mezzanine. Let me escort you. The stairs are just this way." "I was talking to the lady." "The lady has finished the conversation," Han said. She was still smiling. It was a smile that had no relationship whatsoever with her eyes. Brad looked at Ji-hoon. He saw the koi tattoo. He saw the anthracite overcoat folded over one arm. He saw the platinum watch that cost more than the Rolex on his own wrist and made less noise about it. He recalibrated. Some part of Bradford Whitaker III, buried under 3 generations of unearned confidence, understood that the polite thing being said to him was not, in fact, polite at all. He gave a small, tight laugh. He turned. He let Han steer him toward the mezzanine stairs. Naomi rubbed the spot on her elbow once, then she stopped rubbing it, because she did not want Ji-hoon to see her rubbing it. He had already seen. "I did not need that," she said. "I know. Then why did you do it?" "Because a lioness should not have to explain her teeth every 10 minutes. He turned back to the window. Manhattan lay below them, blurred with mist. "It bores her. It bores the room. It bores me." "You said 6 words to her." "I said 4 to him, 2 to her. She is more efficient than I am." "What did you say to him?" Ji-hoon did not answer that either. He watched the mist. Naomi watched the reflection of his face in the dark glass. His mouth had not moved since the moment Brad's hand had come off her elbow, and she understood, without being told, that Bradford Whitaker III had just made a serious professional mistake, and that the mistake would find him on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks from now, inside a spreadsheet he did not know he was inside. She should have been afraid of that. She was not. She was, instead, cataloging something. She had spent the last 40 minutes accepting favors from a man whose last name she did not know. A car, a dress, a jeweler she had never met, an arm at the door, a word in Korean that had removed a hand from her body. Every one of these things was a thread. She was standing at the center of a small tapestry that someone else had woven and hung around her shoulders. She turned from the window. "Kang Ji-hoon," she said. He turned his head. He did not correct the pronunciation. "How did Olivia get me into this room?" His expression did not change. He had known this question would come. He had been waiting for it since the SUV. "She asked a woman named Priya," he said. "Priya works in the mayor's office of cultural affairs. Priya asked a man named Owens. Owens works for a family office called Ashcroft. Ashcroft is a client of a fund called Hanwoo. Hanwoo is a shell company. The shell company invests in 3 others. One of those 3 answers to me. How many weeks ago?" 6. 6. Priya received her request 6 weeks ago. The favor was granted the same day. Miss Hayes was told about the invitation 4 weeks ago. You were told too. Naomi did the arithmetic in her head, and the arithmetic did not comfort her. 2 weeks ago, she had eaten cold pad thai on the studio floor and cried onto a stack of past due notices. 6 weeks ago, a man she had never met had put her name on a guest list. Why? Because your work crossed my desk. My work crossed your desk. A pension fund I hold a minority interest in was reviewing the Yonkers proposal you submitted in April. They passed on it. I read the drawings. You read my drawings? I read everyone's drawings. I liked yours. He said it flat, the way another man might say I liked the rain. There was no compliment in it, there was only the fact of it. He had read her drawings, he had liked them. He had, at some point in the last 6 weeks, decided that Naomi Bennett should be inside this room tonight, on his arm, in a dress the color of a lake at midnight, refusing to be prey. That decision had been made in an office she had never seen. by a man whose face she had never met, and it had traveled through 6 degrees of favor and 1 shell company to arrive at her front door in the form of an invitation she had believed was luck. You arranged this. I opened a door. You walked through it. Marion Delacroix asked you to send her your deck on Monday morning at 8 a.m. I did not put those words in her mouth. She sat down in that chair because she wanted the champagne. She stood up wanting to hire you because of you. I want to be angry about this. Then be. I do not have time to be. No, you have a deck to build by Monday. He turned back to the window. His profile in the dark glass was very still. Somewhere behind them, a string quartet had begun the second movement of something old and slow. The gala had thickened around them into a warm blur of chandelier light and low voices. Naomi understood, in a way she had not understood at any point in the SUV, or at the ballroom door, or in Marion's chair, exactly what kind of room she was standing in, and exactly how she had come to be standing in it. Why did you do it? She said. Not the drawings. That is architecture. Why me? Why the dress? Why the arm? Ji-hoon considered the question the way he considered everything, as though it were a term on a contract he was preparing to sign. I wanted to see, he said, if you would refuse to be prey. And if I had put on the ruby dress and come down, you would have looked beautiful in it, and I would have taken you back upstairs and left. She let that sit. She let it sit long enough to feel it in her stomach. He had not been kind. Kind was the wrong word for what he had done. He had been surgical. He had reached into her worst hour and offered her a mirror, and the mirror had asked one question, and the question had been, do you know what you are? And she had answered it before she knew she was being asked. A lioness does not wear the prey's clothes. She had changed the dress. That was the answer. That was the entire answer. That was why she was standing at a north-facing window with a man whose last name was on the deed of the building she was standing inside, drinking air that tasted like nothing, holding a Monday meeting she had earned and been given at the same time, in a way that made both of those things true at once. I do not like being tested, she said. I did not test you. I invited you. You tested yourself. That is a nice sentence. It is also lawyer language. It is both. She almost laughed. She did not, because the laugh would have unlocked something she was not ready to unlock. But the almost of it was the first crack in the wall she had built in the SUV, and Ji-hoon noticed the crack the way he noticed everything, without appearing to notice at all. Han So-yeon came back. She did not look at Naomi. She spoke 3 words in Korean to Ji-hoon, low and clipped. Ji-hoon nodded once. Mr. Whitaker has been seated on the mezzanine, Han said, switching to English for Naomi's benefit. He is on his 4th whiskey. He has been on the telephone twice. His guest list access has been revised. Revised? He will not be invited back. Naomi looked at Han. Han looked at the middle distance. That was fast, Naomi said. That was slow, Han said. The paperwork was drawn up during his 2nd whiskey. We waited to see if he would apologize. He did not. He did not. Ji-hoon turned. Miss Bennett is going to work the room for another 40 minutes. She is going to shake 7 hands. I will name them, she will remember them because she is going to build a firm off them for the next 15 years. 7, Naomi said. 6 will remember you, 1 will remember the dress. That one will still write you a check. He named the 7. He named them by first name and role and a single detail. A granddaughter at Parsons, a summer house on Fisher's Island, a divorce 2 years old that no one talked about, and Naomi listened, and the emerald dress waited on her body like a well-behaved animal, and when Ji-hoon stopped talking, she nodded once and stepped away from the window and back into the light. She worked the room, she shook 6 hands, she skipped the 7th, because the 7th had grandchildren at Parsons, and she and Olivia had done a pro bono studio critique at Parsons in March, and Naomi did not want the introduction to come from Ji-hoon. She wanted that one to come from her own history. Ji-hoon watched her decide, watched her deviate from his script by 1 name, and something passed across his face that was not quite approval and not quite surprise, and was, in fact, a kind of quiet satisfaction. He said nothing about it. An hour later they were at the coat check. Han was already holding the anthracite overcoat and a small emerald clutch that had been sent up from the SUV at some point, without Naomi noticing. Ji-hoon settled the overcoat on his own shoulders. He did not offer his arm this time. He offered her the clutch instead. Your phone is inside, he said. Also the 16 digits I mentioned in the car. Naomi took the clutch. It was heavier than she expected. She did not open it. What is the 16 digits? A number you can call at any hour. It rings once. And then what? And then whatever you need. She held the clutch against her hip. She did not thank him. He did not seem to want thanks, and he did not seem to want a decision either. He seemed to want, simply, for her to have the number in her hand when she went back upstairs to her apartment and stood in front of her mirror in an $8,000 dress in a life that had been about to end. They stepped outside. The mist had turned to a fine, cold rain. The black SUV was waiting at the curb. The driver held the rear door open. "I will not come up," Ji-hoon said. "I did not ask you to." "I know, I am telling you anyway." "Why?" "Because you are going to want to be alone tonight to understand what has just happened. If I come upstairs, you will spend the whole hour looking at me, and you will not do the understanding. You are a very arrogant man. I am a very accurate man. There is a difference." She got into the SUV. Han closed the door with the same absence of sound as before. Ji-hoon did not lean in. He did not touch the window. He stood on the sidewalk in the anthracite overcoat with his hands in the pockets, and he watched the SUV pull away, and when the SUV turned the corner onto Fifth, he was still standing there, and Naomi did not know how she knew that, but she knew. Her phone was inside the emerald clutch. She took it out. 27 messages from Olivia, escalating from question marks to full sentences, to profanity, to prayer. She typed one line. "I am fine. Marion Delacroix wants my deck at 8 a.m. Monday. I need you at the studio by 6. She sent it. The reply arrived before she had put the phone down. What? What? Naomi. Naomi Bennett. She almost laughed again. This time she let it happen. A short, thin laugh in the back of the dark SUV, alone, in a dress that had not belonged to her 3 hours ago, holding a phone with a 16-digit number folded inside a small note in the bottom of the clutch. The laugh surprised her. She had not laughed in 11 days. She had counted. She did not notice, in the laugh, the second SUV that pulled out of a side street 2 blocks behind them and matched their speed exactly. Han noticed. Han did not say anything. Han sent a single message from the front passenger seat, 3 characters long, and 11 blocks later the second SUV peeled off and disappeared into the wet. Han glanced into the rear view once. Naomi was looking at her phone. Han said nothing. The car climbed north. The rain thickened. Naomi read Olivia's messages and answered them one at a time, and somewhere in the middle of the 7th answer she stopped typing and looked out the window and said, "To no one. 6 weeks." The driver's eyes did not move in the mirror. Han's did not either. The SUV kept climbing. 6 weeks. A man she had never met had been standing in a hallway she had not known existed, holding a door open for the last 6 weeks, waiting to see whether she would walk through it in the right dress. That fact was going to change the shape of every hour that came after this one, and she understood it now, and she was tired, and she was not afraid, and those 2 things together were new to her. She closed the clutch. She rested her head against the cold glass. The city slid past in a wet silver blur. At the door of her building, Han stepped out first. Han walked her the 6 paces to the lobby. Han handed her the clutch a second time, as though the first time had not counted. Han did not smile. Han said in her soft, edgeless English, "Miss Bennett, when you go upstairs, look at the second drawer of your kitchen island. He asked me to leave one thing there this afternoon while you were dressing. You were in my apartment. Briefly, nothing was disturbed. What is in the drawer? A folder. Do not open it tonight. Open it after Monday. He asked me to say those exact words." Han inclined her head half an inch and stepped back into the wet. The SUV pulled away. The doorman held the interior door. Naomi crossed the marble lobby in the emerald dress with the small clutch pressed against her hip and the folder waiting upstairs in a drawer she had opened 4,000 times, and every step across that lobby was a step into a life that was no longer, in any meaningful way, the one she had woken up inside. She rode the elevator alone. She did not look at the mirrored wall. She did not need to. She already knew what she looked like. Inside the apartment, she did not turn on the lights. She dropped the clutch on the console. She walked to the kitchen island. She stood in front of the second drawer for a long moment with her hand on the pull. He had told Han to tell her not to open it tonight. She opened it. The folder was black, unmarked, thin. Inside were 3 sheets of paper, a photograph, an email chain, and a page from a bank statement. The photograph was of Bradford Whitaker III shaking hands with a man Naomi recognized from her own worst year, her ex-partner Nathan Chen, standing in the lobby of the Whitaker Capitol building, dated 11 months ago, 4 months before Chen had drained the studio operating account and disappeared into a jurisdiction with no extradition treaty. The email chain was between Whitaker's assistant and Chen's private counsel. The bank statement showed a wire from Whitaker Capital to a shell company Chen had incorporated in Nevada. The amount on the wire was the exact amount, to the penny, that Chen had taken out of Naomi's operating account. She read it once, she read it twice. Her hand did not shake, her breath did not catch. She placed the 3 pages back inside the folder. She closed the drawer. She stood at the kitchen island in the emerald dress with her palms flat on the marble. Her ex-partner had not stolen from her. He had been paid to. By Bradford Whitaker III, whose hand had been on her elbow 90 minutes ago, whose hand had been removed by 4 Korean syllables spoken by a man who had known this photograph existed the entire time he had been standing next to her at the window. She stood at the marble island for a long time. Outside, the rain thickened against the glass. Her phone buzzed once inside the emerald clutch on the console. She did not look at it. She was looking at the black folder. She was understanding, one slow inch at a time, that the door Ji-hoon had opened for her 6 weeks ago had not been a door into a ballroom. It had been a door into a war he had already been fighting on her behalf, without her permission, for reasons he had not yet named. She picked up the folder. She carried it to the dining table. She set it down in the center of the empty wood. She sat down in front of it in the emerald dress. She folded her hands. Somewhere across the city, Bradford Whitaker III was ordering his 5th whiskey and beginning to type an email he should not have been typing. Somewhere else, in an office she had never seen, a Korean man in an anthracite overcoat was reading a report on a monitor and answering it with a single word. Naomi did not know either of those things yet. She only knew that the story she had walked into that night was not the story she had thought she was in. She sat at the table with the folder in front of her, and she waited for morning. Naomi did not sleep. She sat at the table with the folder in front of her and watched the sky over the Hudson turn from black to a bruised gray and then to a pale, sick blue. The city outside her window came awake in the ordinary way, a garbage truck, a dog on a leash. Somewhere below, a man laughed on the phone. She did not move. At 6, she went to the kitchen and made coffee. She drank it standing at the counter, one hand around the cup, the other flat on the marble, as if she were holding the counter down. The emerald dress lay across the back of a chair like a body. She looked at it once and looked away. At 6:30, her phone chimed. It was Olivia. Just a line. "Are you okay?" She did not answer. She did not know what okay would mean. At 6:42, the phone chimed again. This time it was a news alert. She almost swiped it away out of habit. Then she saw the words. Bennett Studio under federal review. Sources cite client fund diversion. She set the coffee down, very carefully, like someone setting down a glass of water on a moving train. She opened the article. It was a short piece, on a mid-tier finance blog she had never subscribed to. 2 paragraphs. Anonymous sources. Documents obtained by this outlet. Alleged pattern of routing renovation escrow through a shell account in the Caymans. Her name in the 2nd sentence, her studio in the 3rd. A quote from an unnamed former partner about a woman who lived beyond her means. A single photo, cropped, from her own website. Her at a groundbreaking 2 years ago, smiling in a hard hat. She read it twice. She read it a 3rd time. On the 3rd read, she noticed the small icon at the top of the page. 640 shares. Rising. The phone chimed again, and again, and again. She put it face down on the marble. She walked to the window. She put her forehead against the cold glass. She counted the boats on the river. There were 3. She counted them again. Still 3. Then she walked back and picked up the phone. Olivia had left 4 messages. The last one was in all caps. Marian's assistant had called, twice, a journalist from the Post, a woman from a design magazine she had once believed liked her, her landlord. She scrolled up, 93 notifications. Her email had a red dot on it the size of her thumbnail. She opened the email. The first was from Marian Delacroix's chief of staff. 6 lines. Cordial. Distant. In light of this morning's press, the fund would be pausing the letter of intent until the matter was clarified, and would appreciate a written response by end of business today. Cordial, distant, guillotine. She closed the email without answering. She called Olivia. Olivia picked up before the first ring finished. Naomi, listen to me. I'm listening. It's fake. The documents. Whatever they have, it's fake. I know it's fake. We never had an account like that. We never had a client with that name. I already pulled our books. Our books are clean. They are clean, Naomi. I know. Then we fight. Yes. Do you have a lawyer? She almost laughed. I have a woman who did my lease. That's what I have. I'll call Devon. Devon knows people. Call Devon. There was a pause on the other end. She heard Olivia breathing. Are you at home? Yes. Don't open the door. For anyone. Not even a delivery. Not even a nice one. I'm coming over. Olivia. What? Bring the receipts. All of them. From the last 2 years. The paper ones. From the box in the closet. Okay. And bring shoes I can walk in. Olivia was quiet a moment. Okay. Naomi hung up. She stood in the middle of the room. She looked at the emerald dress. She looked at the folder Ji-hoon had left. She had not opened it. She had not been able to. She reached for it now and stopped, her hand 2 inches from the leather. She pulled her hand back. Not yet. She went to the bedroom and put on jeans and a soft gray sweater, and the sneakers she used to walk to the studio when she was pretending the studio was a real business. She washed her face. She put on lip balm. She did not look at herself in the mirror longer than that. At 7:40, the buzzer rang. It was Olivia. She was carrying 2 paper bags of receipts and a laptop and a paper cup of coffee and a small bruised bagel, and her face was set the way her face was set the day her mother had been diagnosed. Naomi took the coffee first. She hugged her second. She did not cry. Olivia did. They can't do this, Olivia said, wiping her face on her wrist. They cannot do this. They already did. I mean, they can't get away with it. That's what I mean. Naomi did not answer. She led Olivia to the table and cleared a space and dumped the paper bags out on the wood. 2 years of receipts, invoices, bank statements, signed contracts. The physical, boring paper of a small, honest business. They started sorting. They did not talk. There was nothing to say. Every so often Olivia's phone would light up on the table, and she would glance at it and turn it face down again. At 8:15, Olivia's phone rang, and she answered because it was Devon. She listened. She said, a lot. She said, okay. She said, how much? She said, all right. She hung up. Devon says he'll do it for the cost of his associates. How much? 20. Naomi's throat closed. She had $1,100 in the coffee tin. She had $4,000 in the business account, which was going to rent next week. She had a personal account with $300 and change. I have it, Olivia said, quiet. No. I have it, Naomi. No. He's my brother's college roommate. He's not going to send collections after me. Take it, please. Naomi looked at her. She did not have the strength to fight this fight. Not this one. I'll pay you back. I know. At 8:45, the first camera showed up on the sidewalk. Naomi saw it from the window. A man in a puffy jacket with a heavy lens. He was not pointing it at the building. Not yet. He was drinking coffee and pretending to be a tourist. She watched him for a full minute before she turned back to the table. There's a photographer downstairs. For you. For me? Olivia went to the window. She looked. She came back and sat down and picked up another receipt and did not say anything. The buzzer rang. They both froze. Naomi walked to the intercom and did not press the button. The buzzer rang again, and a third time. Then a voice, muffled, tinny, through the box. Miss Bennett. Miss Bennett, this is Rachel Chen from Bloomberg. I'd love just 2 minutes. Naomi walked away from the intercom. At 9:15, the landlord called. She let it go to voicemail. She listened to the voicemail. He was very sorry. He had seen the news. He had received calls from the co-op board. There were concerns. He would need to talk to her about the studio lease. Today, if possible. He was very sorry. She deleted the voicemail. She sat back down. She picked up the next receipt. At 9:40, her business bank sent a text. Your account has been flagged for enhanced review. Withdrawals may be delayed. Please contact our fraud department. She showed the text to Olivia. Olivia's jaw moved once. They can freeze accounts based on a blog post? Apparently, that's not legal. It doesn't have to be legal. It has to be inconvenient. That's the whole game. At 10, Devon arrived with a paralegal and a folder of his own. He was tall and thin and wore a suit that was too big in the shoulders on purpose, the way lawyers of a certain kind wore suits. He set his things down on the table and did not smile. Show me everything. They showed him everything. He asked questions. He wrote things down. He made 3 calls in the kitchen, low voice, back turned. He came back and said, "All right, here is what we do today," and he laid it out in 6 bullet points on a legal pad, and she watched him write, and something loosened in her chest for the first time in 3 hours. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at it. His face did the smallest thing. She caught it. He looked up. There's a second story. Where? Wall Street Journal. Just went up. Byline is real. They've been sitting on it. This morning's blog post was the seed. The journal is the tree. He turned his laptop around so they could read. The journal piece was 3,000 words. It named a former partner of hers, a man named Christian Voss, who had left the firm 18 months ago in a mess she had cleaned up quietly because she had believed silence was the professional thing. Voss was quoted. Long paragraphs. He had left because he was concerned about irregularities. He had tried to raise them. He had been pushed out. There were bank statements, there were emails. There was a photocopy of a signed authorization with her signature on it, authorizing the transfer of $340,000 from a client escrow account she had never seen to a shell account in Grand Cayman. She looked at the signature. It was her signature. It was exactly her signature, right down to the little upward flick at the end of the second end. That's not mine. I know. I've never signed that document. I've never seen that document. I know. He was the partner who tried to buy me out for nothing when the pandemic hit. He hated me because I said no. I bought him out for what he was worth, not what he wanted. Devon was already writing. Do you have the buyout paperwork? In the box, in the closet, under the lease. Olivia was already up. The buzzer rang, and rang, and rang. At 10:45, Naomi's phone did a thing she had not expected. It rang, not chimed, rang. She looked at it. Marion Delacroix. Personally, not the chief of staff. She looked at Devon. He nodded once. She answered. She kept her voice level. Marion. Naomi. The old woman's voice was dry as paper. I owe you the courtesy of a direct call. I have been on with our compliance team for the past hour. The letter of intent, as you know, is paused. What you may not know is that our board meets at 4 this afternoon. I have been asked to bring the matter forward for full withdrawal by 5. Naomi did not breathe. I am not going to do that today, Naomi. I am going to ask for 24 hours. That is the most I can give you. 24 hours from now, I will need to hand my board something that lets me stand behind you. If I do not have that, I cannot save this. I understand. Do you have it? Naomi looked at the folder Ji-hoon had left. Untouched, waiting on the table. I will have it. Do not tell me. Show me. Tomorrow at 11. Bring what you have. Bring your lawyer. Bring your accountant. Bring anything real. Yes. Naomi. Yes. I am 70 years old. I have seen this before. When they come for a woman like you, they come with paper. Answer with better paper. The line went dead. Naomi set the phone down. Her hand was steady. Devon was watching her. Who was that? The last one who hasn't left yet. How long? 24 hours. He nodded. He did not say anything encouraging. She appreciated that. They worked. The paralegal spread receipts across the floor. Devon called a forensic accountant he trusted. Olivia went out through the service entrance to buy them all sandwiches and came back with her hood up because the puffy jacket photographer had grown into 3 photographers and a producer with a microphone. At noon, the studio's Instagram, which Olivia ran, hit 2,000 new followers. None of them were friendly. At 12:20, Christian Voss's old attorney sent Devon a letter by email demanding that Naomi cease all commentary regarding his client and warning of a defamation suit. At 12:50, a woman from a Woman's Network magazine that had put Naomi on their 30 under 30 list 4 years ago Sent a text asking if Naomi wanted to write a response piece. My rate is $1 a word. Naomi did not answer. At 1:15, her mother called from Atlanta. She almost did not pick up. She did. Baby. Mama. Your father saw the news. Which one? The one on the Yahoo page. Mama, it's not true. I know it's not true. You do. Girl, I raised you. I know it's not true. Are you eating? Yes. Are you sleeping? No. Do you have people around you? Yes. Do you need money? No. You lie badly. Your father is putting a check in the mail. Do not tell me not to. Mama, do not tell me not to, and listen to me. Are you listening? Yes. They only come this hard for something worth taking. You hear me? They only come this hard for something worth taking. So whatever this is, whatever you built, it's real. You hold on to it. You hold on to it with both hands. And you fight nice, baby. You fight nice, but you fight. Naomi could not answer. She put the phone against her forehead. Her mother waited. Okay, Naomi said, finally. Okay, now go do it. She hung up. She went into the bathroom and shut the door and pressed both hands flat against the mirror and stood there for 1 minute. She did not cry. She looked at her own face until it stopped shaking. Then she went back out. At 1:40, a courier arrived downstairs and the intercom crackled again. Olivia went to the box. A package. She said no. The voice on the other end said it was already paid. Ma'am, just needs a signature. Olivia said leave it with the doorman. She came back and stood at the window and watched until the courier walked away. Naomi. What? There are 5 of them down there now. Okay. One of them has a boom mic. That's not a photographer. That's a broadcast crew. Naomi did not go to the window. She stayed at the table. She wrote the words boom mic on the corner of Devon's legal pad and drew a small square around them. Fees. She did not know why. At 1:50, she called her accountant, a soft-spoken man named Miguel who had done her books for 4 years and who answered on the first ring and said her name like a prayer. She told him. He was quiet for a moment, then he said, I will be at your table at 7 in the morning with every ledger I have. Do not talk to anyone else about numbers until I get there. She thanked him. She hung up. At 2, she opened Jihoon's folder. She had not planned to. Devon needed the buyout paperwork, and she went to the closet for it, and the folder was there on the table when she came back, and she looked at it and thought, no. Then she thought, I told Marian I would have it. She sat down. She untied the black cord. She opened the leather cover. The first page was a single sheet, handwritten, in black ink, in a script she did not know but that felt like his script. The way his voice felt like his voice. Precise, economical, patient. You do not owe me anything. Nothing in this folder makes you owe me anything. It is yours. Do what you decide. Underneath that page were 3 sections, tabbed in silver. The first tab was labeled Voss. Inside were bank records, ownership records, and a paper trail she did not have the training to fully parse, but that Devon read over her shoulder and said quietly, Jesus. Voss had been paid, not once, repeatedly, from a fund whose top layer read like ordinary private wealth and whose bottom layer traced back to a family office run by a man named Whitaker. The second tab was labeled Whitaker. Inside were 3 years of transactions, movements, transfers. A note in the corner in the same precise hand. The signature on your fake authorization was scanned from a real document you signed at a groundbreaking event in June of last year. The photographer was on his payroll. He kept the original. The third tab was labeled You. She hesitated on that one. She opened it. Inside were photographs. Not surveillance photographs. Renderings. Blueprints. Site photos of every project her studio had ever completed. Every one. Even the 2 she had done for cost. For a community center in Bed-Stuy and a women's shelter in the Bronx. A short document, 1 paragraph, unsigned. It described what her firm actually was, in language a stranger had used, in language that saw her. It ended with a single sentence. This is what he tried to steal. She closed the folder. She sat for a moment. Devon was watching her. Olivia was watching her. The paralegal was pretending not to watch her. Devon, she said, can you use this? Yes. Legally clean. Some of it, The provenance on some of it is going to be a fight. But there is enough here for me to walk into Marion's boardroom tomorrow and put a case on the table that says your signature was forged and Voss was paid, and here is who paid him. Do it. Naomi. What? Where did this come from? She looked at him. She thought about the answer she wanted to give, and the answer that was true. From someone who thought I might refuse to be prey. Devon did not ask again. He stood up. He picked up the folder. He and the paralegal moved to the kitchen and started making calls. Olivia sat down next to Naomi. That was him. Yes. Naomi. Don't. I'm not going to say anything. I was just going to say his name. Then say it. Olivia did not say it. At 3, the puffy jacket producer downstairs was replaced by 2 vans. At 3:40, a local news outlet ran a segment. B-roll of her building. A crawler across the bottom. Manhattan architect faces federal scrutiny. Her mother was probably watching in Atlanta. Her father was probably at the post office. At 4:10, Devon came out of the kitchen and said, "The forensic accountant will meet us at 9 tomorrow. She is willing to swear an affidavit if the numbers hold. They will hold. This is our night. We build the binder tonight. Marion at 11. At 5, the landlord called again. She did not pick up. At 5:15, her business bank called and told her they were freezing the operating account pending review. She listened. She thanked them. She hung up. She wrote a number on Devon's legal pad. $4,311. Rent was in 8 days. At 5:30, she went into the bathroom and threw up the sandwich Olivia had bought her at noon. At 6, she came back out and washed her mouth and drank a glass of water and sat down at the table and began to help build the binder. She worked. She stopped being tired. She stopped being anything. She became a set of hands sorting paper into the categories Devon called out, and a voice answering his questions, and a body that stayed upright in the chair. At 7:50, her phone buzzed, a number she did not know. She almost did not answer. Something made her answer. It was Bradford Whitaker. She did not recognize his voice at first because he was trying to sound sad. Naomi. She said nothing. Terrible day for you. I wanted to reach out, personally, and say, if there is anything my family's fund can do to help you through this, Stop. He stopped. How did you get this number? He laughed, a small, tight laugh. He caught himself. Naomi, come on, let's be adults. This can go away. Tonight there is a version of tonight where all of this goes away. Say the version. You issue a statement. You take a 6-month sabbatical. You let the firm rebrand under new management. I have partners who would take the studio off your hands at a fair. Say the number. Silence. Then, softer, uglier, 600. For a firm with an 8-figure book of business. For a firm that isn't going to have a book of business by Monday, sweetheart. She held the phone very still. Bradford. Yes. Never call this number again. She hung up. She set the phone on the table. She looked at Olivia. Olivia looked back. She did not say anything. Naomi picked up the next stack of paper. At 9, the last of the receipts were sorted and cross-referenced, and Devon had a binder 3 inches thick and a script for 11 a.m., and the forensic accountant had confirmed by email that her preliminary review supported the forgery theory. Devon left with the paralegal. Olivia stayed. At 10, Olivia made grilled cheese in the kitchen, and Naomi ate half of one standing at the counter, one hand around her elbow, the other around the sandwich, because if she sat, she was going to fall down. At 10:30, Olivia said, "Sleep. I'll take the couch." "I can't." "Try." She tried. She lay on top of the covers in her sweatshirt and jeans. She watched the ceiling. The ceiling watched her back. At 11:42, her phone lit up on the nightstand. Not a call, a single text, from a number that had no name. She reached for it. She read it. "Sleep. You will be sharp tomorrow. I have already made the second call." She read it twice. She did not answer. She turned the phone face down. She closed her eyes. She did not sleep, but she rested. At 3:17 in the morning, she opened her eyes because a sound had reached her that did not belong. A soft, muted sound. From the living room, she sat up. She listened. Olivia was on the phone in a whisper. Naomi walked to the door of the bedroom, barefoot, silent. She stood in the frame. Olivia was sitting on the couch in the dark. Her back was to Naomi. She was speaking so quietly Naomi could only catch fragments. I know. I told you it wouldn't. I told you she wouldn't take the number. He offered her 6. She said no. Yes, I know. I'm doing what I can. I said I'm doing what I can. Naomi did not move. She did not breathe. Olivia lowered her voice further. I need the rest of it. By tomorrow. You said tomorrow. Yes. Okay. Olivia hung up. She sat with the phone in her lap for a long moment, the dark screen catching the gray of the streetlight through the window. Then she wiped her face with the back of her wrist, exactly the way she had wiped it at 7:40 that morning, and stood up and turned toward the bedroom. She stopped. Naomi was in the doorway. Neither of them moved. Neither of them said anything. Outside, a car passed on the street below and its headlights swept the ceiling once and were gone. Olivia opened her mouth. Naomi did not wait to hear it. The elevator doors opened onto the 22nd floor and Naomi stepped out with a name already burning in her mouth. Marianne Delacroix, Managing Director, Family Office Pension Fund, 412 million under stewardship, allergic to fools. Olivia had said it 3 times in the SUV and stopped saying it when Naomi's jaw stopped moving. Ji-hoon walked 1 step behind, not beside her. Behind, half a pace to her left, close enough to be present, far enough that every eye in the corridor read her as the subject of the sentence and him as the punctuation. The Ashford Gala had spread across 2 floors of the museum's east wing, waiters in white gloves, cellists tucked into a corner playing something German, the kind of light that made mediocre skin look expensive and expensive skin look dangerous. Naomi's skin caught it and refused to let it go. She saw Marianne Delacroix before Marianne Delacroix saw her. Silver bob, gold-rimmed glasses, charcoal Chanel jacket over ivory silk, a sapphire ring older than most people in the room. Marianne was listening to 2 men and doing that specific thing where the mouth agrees and the eyes have already left the building.
2 minutes,
Naomi said, quiet, over her shoulder. Ji-hoon didn't answer. He didn't need to. She crossed the room the way she used to cross the floors of half-gutted warehouses in Bushwick when a client wanted to know if the beam could hold and she wouldn't be believed unless she stepped on it first. Even weight. Chin level, no smile she hadn't authorized. The 2 men noticed her first. They always did. She let them. Ms. Delacroix. Marianne turned. The gray eyes behind the thin gold rims took Naomi in the way a jeweler takes in a stone under the loupe. Cut, clarity, origin. Miss Bennett. You know me. I know your renderings, Marianne said. I don't know you. That's why I came over. One of the men laughed the wrong laugh. Marianne didn't. The corner of her mouth moved a millimeter, and Naomi understood she had 90 seconds, not 2 minutes. The Ashford Mills complex, Naomi said. You're the pension that bought the ground lease in 2019 and hasn't decided what to do with it. That is not public information. It's public if you know how to read a title search. Marianne held her look for 1 more second, then gestured at the 2 men without looking at them. They peeled off. Naomi felt the space close around her and Marianne like a small, quiet room appearing in the middle of a loud one. Talk. Adaptive reuse, Naomi said. You have 4 buildings, 3 of them landmarked shells, 1 of them a demolition target, the community board will not sign off on. Nobody's going to give you new construction on that footprint. If you try, you'll bleed 22 months in hearings and end up with a shorter tower than you have permits for now. You already know this. Go on. Keep the shells, gut the interiors, sell it to the neighborhood as preservation, and to your pension board as yield. Mixed use. Ground floor retained industrial. Floors 2 through 6 residential. Rooftops mechanical and amenity. I can hold the historic tax credit and the affordability set-aside in the same pro forma, without breaking either one. Nobody in this city can. I've done it twice. Where? Long Island City, Red Hook. Names of the deals. Naomi gave them. Marianne's expression did not move, but her right hand, resting on the stem of her champagne flute, tightened enough to whiten the knuckle for a second, and then release. That was the tell. That was the door opening a crack. You're the architect on both. I'm the architect and the owner of the studio that structured both. How big is your studio? Small enough to care. Large enough to close. How large is that? 4 people. Marian's eyebrow lifted a quarter of an inch. In her language, that was a shout. 4 people, she repeated. You wanted a boutique, Naomi said. You said it in The Real Deal in March. You said, and I quote, that the last thing a landmarked shell needs is a 100-person firm treating it like a spreadsheet. 4 people means every drawing that leaves my studio has been touched by me. That is what you were asking for. You just didn't know who was going to walk up to you tonight and offer it. Marian set the flute on the tray of a passing waiter without looking at the waiter. Send me your deck by Monday. You'll have it by Sunday at 9. Sunday at 9 is aggressive. So is your maturity ladder on the ground lease? I read your last quarterly. The eyebrow lifted a second time. Naomi understood she had just cleared the wall. Ms. Bennett. Ma'am. Who is the man behind you? Naomi did not turn. She had felt him settle 2 meters back the moment she reached Marian. Present, silent, a weight the room could not stop measuring. A friend of the studio. Interesting friend. I choose my friends carefully. Marian looked past her, once, briefly, and Naomi watched something register in the older woman's face that Naomi could not entirely read. Not surprise. Recognition, maybe. The way one specific type of predator recognizes another and files the information away for later. Sunday at 9, Marian said. My office. Bring the pro forma and the schematic. Bring nobody else. Understood. Marian moved off toward the far end of the room, and Naomi stood exactly where she was until the sapphire ring was out of sight. Only then did she breathe out. It was a small breath. She did not let it show. Ji-hoon was next to her, not behind her now. Sunday at 9, he said. You heard. I heard. She's going to sign. She's going to sign, he agreed. They moved together, not touching, into the current of the room. Naomi took a glass of something clear from a passing tray and did not drink from it. It was a prop. Marian had taught her, 20 seconds ago, without meaning to, how a woman in this room held her hand. A man in a bad tuxedo stepped into her path. She recognized him as a junior partner at one of the mid-tier funds, the kind of face that carried a Rolodex it hadn't earned. He talked at her about a project in Jersey City for 11 seconds. He put his hand on her elbow. Ji-hoon's voice arrived over Naomi's left shoulder. 1 sentence. Korean. Naomi did not speak Korean. She did not need to. The man in the bad tuxedo went the color of paper. His hand came off her elbow so fast it clipped the champagne flute of a woman behind him. He said something apologetic to no one specifically, and turned and walked toward the coat check with the walk of a man whose evening had ended 6 seconds ago. Han So-yeon materialized from the crowd on Naomi's right, murmured half a word to Ji-hoon, and was gone again. What did you say to him? Naomi asked, without looking. His name. That's all. That was enough. She let a second go by. You knew his name? I know most of the names in this room. Including which ones are allowed to touch me. None of them, Ji-hoon said, are allowed to touch you. She did not answer. She kept walking. But something inside her chest was doing a slow, careful rearrangement, and she did not want to look at it yet. 3 more conversations. A hedge fund principal who wanted her card. A magazine editor who wanted her face in a spread about young black architects reshaping downtown. A partner at a legacy white shoe firm who leaned in too close and said her name like it was a compliment he had invented. Each time, Ji-hoon was 1 step behind. Each time, the conversation ended when Naomi wanted it to end, not when the man wanted it to end. She started to notice something else. The waiters were not passing them the same way they passed the other couples. Trays approached, hovered, and moved on when Ji-hoon gave the smallest shake of his head. A path opened across the room whenever they stepped into it. When she went to the powder room, a woman in a black earpiece she had not previously seen was already standing beside the door pretending to check her phone. Naomi came out of the powder room and walked toward the balcony. She needed cold air on her collarbone. She needed 30 seconds without a face in front of her. Ji-hoon was not following her. He was standing exactly where she had left him, watching her cross the floor with the same expression he had worn in the SUV, neither approving nor disapproving. Attending. She stepped onto the balcony. The wind off the park lifted the hem of the emerald dress and put it back down. Her earrings were cold against her neck. Somewhere behind her, the cellists had moved on to something French. She closed her eyes for exactly 3 seconds. When she opened them, Olivia was next to her. Girl, don't. He's watching you like you're the only person in the room. He watches everyone like that. No, he doesn't. Olivia was looking at her the way she used to look at renderings before Naomi finalized them, checking the load-bearing walls. Naomi. What? How did we get in here? Naomi did not answer immediately. She had been circling the question for 2 hours and pushing it under the surface every time it broke. You said Aunt Cheryl, she said. You said Aunt Cheryl called in a favor with a woman on the board. I said what I was told. By who? By the office that handled the invitation. I never talked to Aunt Cheryl, I texted her. She said she'd try. 2 days later, a courier showed up at the studio with 2 engraved invitations and a note that said, Ms. Bennett is confirmed. You didn't tell me it was a courier. You were too tired to care. Olivia. Naomi. What was the return address on the envelope? There wasn't one. Olivia had lowered her voice. There was a company name. On the note, I looked it up. It's a Shell, LLC, out of Delaware, nested inside another LLC out of Wyoming. I stopped digging because I didn't want to know. Naomi turned around slowly. Through the tall glass doors, at the far end of the room, Ji-hoon was standing in exactly the spot he had been in when she walked out. He was speaking to Han So-yeon in a way that did not move his mouth very much. Han's eyes flicked once toward the balcony and back. He arranged the door, Naomi said, quiet. Olivia did not answer. Weeks ago, Naomi's fingers tightened on the balcony rail. He arranged the invitation weeks ago, before the dress, before the text, before any of it. You don't know that. Yes, I do. The wind lifted the hem again. Naomi did not put a hand down to hold it. She thought about the SUV appearing on her block within 9 minutes of a photograph landing on the wrong phone. She thought about a driver who was already dressed for a black tie gala. She thought about a dress in her size, jewelry pre-cleared by a private stylist, a car that knew her address. She thought about the note on the tissue paper. Change what you wear. Do not change who you are. She had spent all evening assuming the intervention began at 6:47 p.m. when Ji-hoon read a mistyped text. She had been wrong. The intervention began the moment her name went onto a guest list she never sent an application to. She let the breath go this time. It was not a small breath. Naomi, Olivia said, you're smiling. I know. Why are you smiling? Because he could have just written a check. What? He could have written a check to the studio. Anonymous donor, line item, receivable, done. He could have paid off the past due. He could have bought us 6 months of runway with less trouble than it took to send Han across town with a garment bag. So he didn't. Naomi turned her face into the wind. He wanted to know if I would refuse to be prey. Say that again? He wasn't rescuing me. He was testing me. Olivia opened her mouth. Naomi did not wait to hear it. She stepped back through the balcony doors into the warm, loud room and walked, without stopping, across the parquet, past a senator's wife and a museum trustee and a real estate mogul who tried to catch her eye and failed, until she was standing directly in front of Kang Ji-hoon. Close, closer than she had stood to him all night. The koi tattoo on the left side of his neck was visible just above the collar. She had not let herself look at it before. She looked at it now. The line of the tail curved down and disappeared under Egyptian cotton. You put my name on the list, she said. His face did not change. 3 weeks ago, she said. 4 weeks ago. Yes. Why? You know why. Say it. I read your studio's 990 and your last 3 project write-ups in the trade press, Ji-hoon said, quietly. Level. I read the community board minutes for Ashford Mills. I read Marion Delacroix's investment memos going back 6 quarters. There is exactly one architect in this city who can close her project and keep her out of court, and it is not the firm on her short list. It is the firm that is not on her short list. I put you in the room where she could find you, without asking me. Asking you would have been offering charity. And putting me here without telling me isn't. Putting you here without telling you, he said, is an invitation. An invitation gives you the right to walk out. Charity does not. She did not step back. And the dress, she said. The dress was a separate decision. Made when? Made at 6:52 p.m. tonight. Because the photograph you sent to the wrong number was not a woman who intended to be at this gala. It was a woman who had already decided she was going to be devoured tonight and had chosen the outfit for it. Her mouth opened. It closed. "And you decided," she said. "I decided that a woman who could out-argue Marion Delacroix in 90 seconds should not walk into that room dressed for the man she was trying to escape from." "You didn't know I could out-argue Marion Delacroix in 90 seconds." "I did." "How?" "I read your work." She stood there, in the middle of the Ashford Gala, in a midnight emerald haute couture dress that had been chosen for her by a man who had read her renderings before he had ever heard her voice, and she understood, with a clarity that arrived without warning and did not leave, that the story she had been telling herself all night was the wrong story. The story was not, a stranger rescued a woman in trouble. The story was, a man had been watching a woman he had never met build something he respected, and had waited for the exact moment she was about to sell it cheap in order to step in front of her and refuse to let her. That was not rescue. That was recognition. And recognition from a man like this was more dangerous than rescue could ever be. "Kang Ji-hoon," she said. "Ms. Bennett, what do you actually do?" "I chair a private equity fund." That's the surface answer. Yes. What is the answer under the answer? His eyes did not move from hers. "I make sure," he said, "that certain rooms have the right people in them, and certain people have the right rooms." That's still not the answer. No. Are you going to give me the answer? Not tonight. When? When you ask me the way you asked Marion for her project. She held his look. The cellists had moved on to something Italian. Somewhere in the crowd behind her, a man laughed too loud. "Fair," she said. "Ms. Bennett. Naomi. Naomi." He said it once, quietly. The way a man says a word he has been carrying in his mouth for a long time and has decided to set down. "Take me home," she said. Ji-hoon lifted his chin a quarter inch. Han So-yeon appeared at his elbow before the gesture had completed. 2 seconds of low Korean. Han vanished. Ji-hoon offered his arm the same way he had offered it at the museum steps. She took it. They walked out through the same corridor she had walked in through, and every eye in the room measured her a second time and came to a different answer than the first. She felt it on her spine. She let it settle there. In the SUV, the leather smelled the same as it had going in. The driver did not look in the rear view. Ji-hoon sat across from her, wool overcoat folded over his forearm now, one hand resting on his knee. "Marion is going to sign," Naomi said. She was not asking. "She is going to sign," Ji-hoon said. "What happens between Sunday at 9 and the signature?" "Nothing that requires you." "Meaning?" "Meaning, there is a man in that room tonight who is going to be angry that you walked out of it on my arm, and he is going to try to hurt you in the small hours, and none of what he tries is going to succeed." Naomi held very still. "Which man?" "Bradford Whitaker III. "I don't know him." "You do. He tried to shake your hand near the string quartet. You did not offer yours." She remembered the smirk, the pink pocket square, the Rolex too heavy for the wrist. She had brushed past him without registering his face. "He runs a fund," Ji-hoon said. "It is not really his. He inherited a chair. He tried to buy into Ashford Mills 18 months ago. Marion refused him. He has been telling himself since then that the reason she refused him was that she was waiting for a bigger name. He watched her stand still and listen to you for 4 minutes. He did the math. So, what's he going to do? He is going to try to burn you. How? With paper. Meaning. Meaning by 4 in the morning there will be a document in the inbox of every trade reporter in this city that says you defrauded a former partner 2 years ago. And by 9 in the morning, Marion Delacroix will read it. And by 10 in the morning, her letter of intent to your studio will be worth exactly nothing." Naomi did not blink. "Is any of it true?" she said. "None of it." "How do you know?" "Because I know who wrote it." "Say the name." "The name is not important tonight. The name is important tomorrow." "Ji-hoon." "Naomi. Are you going to stop it?" He did not answer immediately. The SUV crossed a stretch of park where the streetlights hit his face at intervals, and each interval turned him from silhouette to sculpture and back. "I could stop it before it happens," he said. But I am going to let it happen." She sat forward. "Why?" Because you have not yet decided what kind of woman you are going to be with a man like me, standing near you, he said. And I need to know. You want to watch me almost drown. I want to watch you refuse to. That's cruel. Yes. Why did you bring me home if you knew this was coming? I did not bring you home. You asked me to. She sat back. The SUV had turned onto her block. The past due notice was still on the counter upstairs. The coffee tin was still in the cupboard. The empty shelves were still empty. All of it was about to be joined, by 4 a.m, by a document in every reporter's inbox that would break her firm in the time it took to pour a cup. You could have told me any of this an hour ago, she said. I could have. You waited. Yes. Because a woman who is warned in advance is a woman who calls in favors and hides. And you do not need to hide. You need to stand exactly where you are and let the man who tried to burn you learn what it costs. Learn from who? Ji-hoon did not smile, but something at the corner of his mouth moved, very briefly, in a way she would remember later. Learn from you, he said. I am only the room. The SUV stopped. He got out first. He opened her door. He offered his hand, and she took it and stepped down onto her own sidewalk in midnight emerald silk. The doorman she had never had before tonight held her building's door open as if he had held it every night of her life. Ji-hoon. Yes. When they come at me at 2 a.m. They will. Do I call you? No. No. You do what you were going to do at 9 tomorrow morning anyway. Send Marion the deck by Sunday. Sign nothing you have not read. Speak to no reporter. Sleep if you can. And you? I will be where I need to be. Where is that? Close. He did not let go of her hand right away. When he did, it was with the same specific care he had used at the museum, the care of a man setting down a thing he had chosen to be responsible for. She turned. She walked into her building. She did not look back until the elevator doors closed on her reflection in the polished brass, and in that reflection, she saw a woman in a midnight emerald dress with a spine like a plumb line and eyes that had learned, at some point tonight, to stop asking permission. Upstairs, she stepped out of her sandals in the doorway. She did not turn the light on. She walked barefoot across the cold floor to the counter where the past due notice still sat, picked it up, folded it in half, and slid it under the coffee tin. Then she opened her laptop. The first document she pulled up was the Ashford Mills pro forma. The second was a blank email addressed to Marion Delacroix. Subject line, Sunday, 9 a.m., attached. She had not started to type when her phone lit up on the counter. Unknown number. The preview under the message read, We need to talk about a partner of yours from 2023. Some of us have documents. Naomi looked at the phone. She did not pick it up. She looked instead at the reflection of her own face in the dark kitchen window, deep brown skin under the streetlight from below, emerald at her throat, and behind the reflection, somewhere out on the avenue in a black SUV she could not see, a man who had told her exactly what was coming and had refused to stop it. The phone buzzed again. A second preview. This one longer. This one with a file attached. She read the first line without touching the screen. A name from 2 years ago. A partner she had bought out with the last of her savings after he had lifted 6 months of billings and blamed a bookkeeper. A story she had settled quietly because a courtroom would have taken the studio down with him. A story Bradford Whitaker III had no honest way of knowing, unless someone had sold it to him. She thought about who had been in that closing room. The lawyer, the accountant, the ex-partner himself. 3 names. One of them had spoken to a man in a navy Brioni suit for money. She would find out which. She would not find out tonight. Then a third time. She closed the laptop. She walked to the window. She rested her forehead against the cold glass and, for the first time all night, allowed herself one word, spoken quietly into the pane so no one on earth could hear it but her. Come. The first ping came at 2:17 in the morning. Naomi didn't hear it. She was already asleep on top of the sheets, still in the midnight emerald dress, one heel kicked off by the bed and the other tipped on its side by the door. The clutch sat unopened on the entry console. The emerald earrings lay in a small dish where she had dropped them the second she walked in, because her fingers had been shaking too much to work the clasp twice. The phone lit again, then again. Then it stopped counting and just glowed. She woke because the room felt wrong, not because of a sound, because of light. Her screen was throwing pale blue against the ceiling in short pulses, the kind of rhythm a phone only has when notifications are stacking faster than the phone can settle them. She turned her head on the pillow. She squinted. She reached. 23 missed calls. She sat up too fast and the room tilted once and then found its footing. She thumbed the screen open. The first message on top was from Olivia, sent 9 minutes ago. Only 2 words. Call me. Under that, 6 more from Olivia, spaced by minutes. Naomi. Please. Right now. I'm not joking. Wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Below Olivia, a wall of names Naomi barely knew, a junior associate from the Whitaker Fund, a press assistant she had met once at a coffee 2 years ago, 2 journalists she had never spoken to in her life, a woman from the Ashford Preservation Board. She scrolled. She didn't stop scrolling for a long time. Her thumb froze on a screenshot someone had sent her from an anonymous account. She opened it. It was her name, her studio's letterhead, her signature at the bottom. She had never seen the document before. She read it once and understood nothing. She read it a second time and understood everything. It was an invoice, dated 11 months ago, addressed to a shell company she had never heard of. The line items were labeled as consulting fees for a landmark building she had never touched. The total was $240,000. The signature at the bottom was a perfect forgery of hers. The small, deliberate loop she made on the N, the way she never crossed the second T in Bennett all the way through. Whoever had made it had studied her hand. She swiped to the next screenshot. Another invoice, different shell, different building, same signature, same loop on the N. The next one, and the next. By the 6th, she stopped counting. She put the phone face down on the bedside table and pressed both palms flat against the mattress, because her hands had started doing something they had never done before. They were shaking without her permission, not a tremor, a vibration. The phone rang. She turned it over. Olivia. Naomi? Naomi, are you there? Naomi, say something. I'm here. Please tell me you didn't sign those. I didn't sign those. Okay. Olivia was breathing too fast on the other end, the kind of breathing that was really crying with the crying pushed down. Okay, because at midnight, someone sent a package to 12 people. 12 board members, 2 press desks, the Ashford chair, Marion, Naomi. Marion. Naomi closed her eyes. Naomi, say something. When was it sent to Marion? 12/17. By whom? A shell account. It's already gone. I checked. It scrubbed itself an hour after it sent. Naomi opened her eyes and looked at the wall. How bad? Bad. How bad, Olivia? There was a pause. Naomi heard her friend swallow. There's a piece on the journal's business feed at 4. It's already written. My contact showed me the draft. Show me. I'm sending it now. The phone buzzed under her ear. She pulled it away, opened the file, and her eyes did that thing where they refuse to read, left to right, and instead try to grab the whole page at once and take the punch in one go. Manhattan architect under scrutiny, after fabricated invoices surface ahead of Ashford Gala. The word fabricated was the only word she needed to see, and she saw it fast and understood it was there to protect the outlet, not her. She read the first paragraph anyway. Her name, her studio's name, her firm's zip code, a quote from a source close to the Whitaker family fund. The phrase, credibility questions, used twice. The phrase, founding partner allegedly. The word, pattern? She stopped reading. Olivia. Yeah. Who's the source close to Whitaker? Take a guess. Brad himself. I would bet the studio on it. There is no studio to bet. Silence on the line. Then Olivia said, very quietly, don't say that yet. Naomi stood up. The emerald dress moved against her hips like water, and she caught sight of herself in the dark window and hated for 1 second the way she still looked expensive in it, the way the dress still fit like the night hadn't happened. She walked to the kitchen. She poured a glass of water. She drank half of it standing at the sink. She set it down. Marian's letter of intent, she said. Yeah? It has a morals clause. I know. Standard for a pension fund. I know. It voids if there's public reputational risk at the time of countersignature. I know, Naomi. When is her countersignature scheduled? 9:30. Naomi looked at the microwave clock. 2:41. So I have until 9:30 to make this go away. You have until 4. When the journal piece runs, Marian's compliance team pulls the file automatically. It won't even reach her desk. Naomi put both hands on the counter. The counter was cold. That was the thing she noticed. The counter was cold and her hands were warm, and for a second, the temperature difference was the only real thing in the room. Naomi. Yes. Are you calling a lawyer? With what money? I'll call Harold. Harold doesn't do defamation. Harold has a friend. Harold's friend charges $1,200 an hour. Naomi. Call him anyway. She hung up before Olivia could answer. She stood in her kitchen in a dress that cost more than her rent, and she looked at her phone, and she thought about the sequence of the last 6 hours, and she thought about the man who had put himself one step behind her all night, and she thought about the sentence. A lioness does not wear the prey's clothes, and she felt something in her chest do the opposite of what she wanted. She wanted to be angry. She was not angry. She was tired in a way she had never been tired before. The phone lit again. A number she didn't know. She let it ring. It rang out. Then it started again. She let it ring again. The third time, it rang and did not stop, and something about the persistence made her pick up without saying hello. Ms. Bennett, a woman's voice, efficient, not warm, not cold, neutral in a way that cost training. Who is this? I'm calling on behalf of the Delacroix office. Miss Delacroix has asked me to inform you personally that the 9:30 meeting is postponed, pending review of certain materials that have been forwarded to her overnight. Naomi held the phone very still. Postponed until when? That will be communicated to your office in due course. That means never. The voice on the other end did not deny it. That was its own answer. Ms. Bennett, Ms. Delacroix asked me to add one thing, off the record. Say it. She said the work was extraordinary. She said she is sorry. Naomi closed her eyes. Thank you. Good night, Ms. Bennett. The line went dead. She lowered the phone. She looked at the kitchen, the half-empty water glass, the cold counter, the tiny puddle of condensation forming under the glass, her bare feet on the wood floor, the dress catching light from the street lamp. She walked back to the bedroom. She sat on the edge of the bed. She put her face in her hands, and she did not cry. That surprised her. She had thought, all the way from the kitchen to the bedroom, that when she sat down she would cry. She had almost been looking forward to it, because crying at least would be a decision her body was making without her having to think. Her body did not cry. Her body just sat there and breathed. The phone lit again. This time it was an email alert from her landlord. Subject line, regarding the studio lease. She opened it. It was short. The landlord had received a phone call at 2:11 from a party who wished to purchase the remainder of her studio's lease outright. The offer was generous. He was, per the terms of her contract, obligated to inform her of any such approach. He would need a written response by end of business on Monday. He was very sorry to write to her at this hour. He knew it was a difficult moment. He did not name the party. He didn't have to. She put the phone down on the bed. She stood up. She walked to the window and she rested her forehead against the glass again, the way she had in the SUV, the way she had done all night whenever her body needed something colder than her thoughts. The glass was fogged from her breath in 3 seconds. She wiped it clear with the side of her hand. Downstairs, the street was empty. A single delivery van idled at the corner with its hazards on. A cat crossed. The street lamp buzzed. She looked at her reflection in the glass and passed it, at the same time, the way people do when they are trying to decide who they are looking at. The dress, the bare shoulders, the pulse in her throat. She said one word out loud into the pain. No. It was not a word directed at anyone. It was a word directed at the shape of the night. A refusal. Small, private. The kind of no that a woman says at 4 in the morning before she knows what she is refusing yet. She turned from the window. She walked to the closet. She opened it. She looked at the row of clothes she owned, the neutral blazers, the tailored trousers, the 3 good shirts, the 2 work dresses that she rotated in a public cycle so no one at any board meeting could accuse her of wearing the same thing twice. She looked at them for a long time. She did not change out of the emerald. She walked to her small desk in the corner of the bedroom, the desk where she did the studio's books when Olivia was too tired to look at numbers anymore. She opened her laptop. She logged into the studio's bank account. $12,418. That was what was in there. Payroll for 2 of the 3 junior draftsmen was due on Friday. Rent on the office was due Tuesday. She had promised Olivia a small back payment of the salary Olivia had stopped taking 6 months ago. She looked at the number for a while. She logged out. She opened a new tab. She typed the address of the boutique lawyer Harold used to refer her to when she had leases to review. She started an email. She wrote 3 sentences. She deleted them. She started again. She wrote 2 sentences. She deleted them. She closed the laptop. She sat back in the chair. The chair creaked under her. She thought about the man on the mezzanine. She thought about the way he had said, "Change right now." 12 hours ago, when she had been standing in a red bodycon dress in front of her mirror with a mistyped digit on her screen. She thought about how easy it would be, right now, to pick up her phone and send him one word. Help. She thought about it for a long time. She did not send it. She stood up. She walked to the bathroom. She turned on the sink. She washed her face without taking off the makeup around her eyes first, and the wine lipstick smeared across her chin, and she looked in the mirror at what her mother would have called a woman who has been through something, and she laughed, one dry sound, no joy in it, more like a cough. Then she washed her face properly, then she dried it, then she looked at herself again. Her eyes were clear. That surprised her most of all. She walked back into the bedroom. The phone rang. She looked at the screen. "Olivia," she answered. "Harold's friend can't take it," Olivia said, before Naomi had said hello. "He has a conflict." "What conflict?" "He wouldn't say." Naomi closed her eyes and breathed in through her nose and out through her mouth. "How many other names does Harold have?" "2 more. I'm calling now." "But Naomi." "What?" "Both of them do work for Whitaker's fund." "That's the conflict." "Yeah. Every good defamation lawyer in this city has done work for the Whitaker Fund at some point in the last 10 years. "Yeah. That's not an accident." "No. He owns them. He doesn't own them. He's rented them enough that they can't touch him." "Same thing." There was silence on the line. Olivia said, "Naomi." "Yes." "You need to sleep." "I'm not going to sleep." "You need to try." "Olivia." "What?" "He's going to send a car." Silence. "You think so?" "I know so." "Do you want him to?" Naomi opened her mouth to answer and closed it. She sat on the edge of the bed. She looked at the wood floor between her bare feet. "I don't know," she said. "Naomi." "I said I don't know." "That's not the same as no." "I know it's not." Olivia was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was gentler than Naomi had heard it in weeks. "You didn't ask for any of this. I asked for the meeting with Marion." "That's not the same, isn't it?" "No, Naomi, it's not. You asked to be in the room. You didn't ask to be handled by a man in a black coat." Naomi did not answer. "But if the car comes," Olivia said, "and you get in it, I won't judge you." "Thank you. I'll be furious with you tomorrow, but I won't judge you tonight." "Understood. Try to sleep." "Okay." They both knew she wouldn't. Olivia hung up. Naomi set the phone down. The clock said 3:09. She stood up. She walked to the entry console. She picked up the emerald earrings from the dish, turned them once in the street lamp light so the stones caught green, and put them back. She picked up the clutch. She opened it. Inside was the small folded card of the studio she had been carrying for weeks. The card she gave people at cocktails and who tucked it politely into their inside pocket and never called. She looked at her name embossed on it. Naomi Bennett, Bennett Studio, Architecture. She ran her thumb over the letters once. Then she did something she had never done in her life. She walked back to her bedroom, still in the emerald dress, and she got down on the floor. Not on the bed, the floor. She sat with her back against the side of the mattress, her legs stretched out in front of her, her feet bare, and she pulled her knees up slowly, and she folded her arms around them, and she put her forehead down on her arms. She stayed like that. The dress made a soft sound against the wood every time she breathed. Her phone lit up on the bed above her head. She did not look. It lit again. She did not look. The third time she thought maybe it was Marion. She reached up without lifting her head and slid the phone off the sheets and turned the screen so she could see it from the floor. It was not Marion. It was a message from an unknown number. 3 words. "Where are you?" She stared at the screen. There was no name attached. There was no signature. There was no context. She did not need any of those things. She typed one word back. "Floor." She did not send it. She looked at the word for a long time. Then she deleted it, one letter at a time, watching each letter disappear from the screen with a small satisfaction she could not explain to herself. She typed one word instead. "Home." She sent it. The reply came in 9 seconds. "I know." That was all. No other message followed. No demand, no car promised, no arm offered, just those 2 words, small and flat on the screen, and somehow the smallness of them was the thing that finally broke her. She let the phone drop. She did not cry loudly. She did not sob. She made no sound at all. She simply started leaking, from the eyes, into the sleeves of the emerald dress, and she pressed her forehead harder into her folded arms and let it happen. She cried on the floor for a length of time she could not measure. When she stopped, the room was still dark, the phone was still silent, and the street lamp outside was still buzzing its faint electric note through the closed window. She lifted her head. She wiped her face with the flat of her palm. She reached for the phone. She did not look at the last message. She opened a fresh screen. She began to type. She wrote, "I'm not asking you to save me." She looked at it. She deleted, "Asking you to..." Now it read, "I'm not save me." She almost laughed at the accidental grammar of the thing, the way her half-erased sentence had turned itself into something almost like a prayer. She held her thumb down on the delete key until the whole line was gone. She started again. "I need to know what you want from me before you send a car." She read it 3 times. She sent it. Her heart, for the first time all night, did the thing her heart did when she was about to walk into a client meeting she had not fully prepared for. It hit hard against her ribs, twice, then slowed, then settled. The reply took a full minute. When it came, it was longer than any message he had sent her. "Nothing you cannot give and still be yourself in the morning. If that is not enough, do not open the door. If it is, be dressed by 4:30. Not the emerald, something you already owned before tonight." She read it twice. She read it a third time, focusing on the last sentence. "Something you already owned before tonight." She sat with that on the floor for a long minute. She understood it. She understood it exactly. It was not a compliment. It was not a seduction. It was a boundary, his boundary, drawn around her, that whatever came next would not be a continuation of the dress and the gala and the arm and the SUV. Whatever came next would be her, in her own clothes, on her own 2 feet. She stood. She walked to the closet. She reached past the 2 board meeting dresses and past the emergency blazer and past the neutral silk blouses, and she took down, from the very back of the rod, a plain black wool sweater she had bought 7 years ago in her 2nd year of school and had never thrown away because it fit her shoulders the way nothing else ever had. She took down a pair of straight black trousers. She took down the flat black leather boots she wore on site visits, the ones with the scuff on the left toe from a nail she had stepped on at the East River warehouse. She took down her own black wool coat, the honest one, the one she wore in real life. She looked at the emerald dress on her body. She reached behind her neck and undid the small hook. She let the dress fall. She stepped out of it. She did not look down at it on the floor. She did not pick it up. She left it there in a puddle of silk the color of a bruise at midnight, and she walked past it to the bathroom and washed the makeup off her face for the 2nd time, and this time she did not stop at the eyes. She came out with a clean face. She dressed. The black sweater, the trousers, the boots. She braided her collarbone bob into a small, tight braid that started high on her scalp and ended just past her ear. She looked in the mirror. The woman who looked back at her was 30 seconds younger than she felt and 40 years older than she had been at 9 in the evening. She put on the coat. She checked her phone. 4:22. She walked to the entry console. She picked up her keys, her real keys, not the tiny clutch, and she slid them into her coat pocket. She picked up her wallet. She left the emerald earrings in the dish. She left the clutch. She left the phone. She almost left the phone. She turned back. She picked it up. She walked to the door. She stood with her hand on the knob for 8 full seconds, and she breathed, and she thought about her mother, 3 states away, sleeping in a house Naomi had not been able to save from being remortgaged twice. She thought about her father, 3 years dead. She thought about Olivia, at home, staring at her ceiling. She thought about Marion Delacroix, who had said the work was extraordinary and who was sorry. She thought about the $12,418. She thought about the word fabricated. She opened the door. She stepped into the hallway. She closed the door behind her without looking back. The elevator was already waiting on her floor, which meant someone had held it. She did not check who. She stepped inside. The doors closed. Downstairs, through the glass of the lobby door, she could see the black SUV at the curb, not idling, turned off. The driver was outside the car, standing at the passenger door, waiting the way a person waits when they have been told to wait exactly there for exactly her. Han Seo-yeon was not in the SUV. That was the first thing Naomi noticed. The back door of the car was already open. Standing beside it, in a long anthracite wool coat, one hand in his pocket, the other loose at his side, with no umbrella and no entourage and no watch visible under the cuff, was Kang Ji-hoon. He was not looking at the building. He was looking at the corner of the street, at the delivery van with its hazards on, at the cat that was still crossing back the other way, at the street lamp that was still buzzing. He was letting her have the 15 seconds between the elevator and the door without watching her arrive. She pushed the lobby door. He turned. She stopped on the top step. He did not smile. He did not step forward. He did not offer his arm this time. He waited. The wind moved once through the street and lifted the collar of her coat against her jaw and settled it back down. She walked down the 3 steps. She stopped at the bottom, one arm's length from him, in her own clothes, in her own boots, in her own name. "Say it," she said. Her voice was level, steadier than she had expected. "Whatever you came to say it here, before I get in the car." His eyes moved across her face once, slowly, the way a person reads a page they intend to remember. "Not here," he said, "but close." He turned his head slightly toward the SUV. He did not touch her. "There is a diner 4 blocks north," he said. "It is open. We will walk." She did not move. "Why walk?" "Because what I am going to tell you," he said, "you should hear on your own feet." They walked south, hugging the edge of the sidewalk where the street lamps threw the cleanest light. Naomi's heels made a small, clean sound on the wet pavement. She had not put on a coat. Ji-hoon walked half a step behind her on the traffic side, matching her pace exactly, saying nothing. "Talk," she said. "Not yet." "Then why walk?" "Because when I stop, you'll want to sit down. And you won't be able to." She almost laughed. It came out as a short breath through her nose. 2 blocks passed. A cab hissed by. A man in a fluorescent vest hosed the front of a bodega. The city kept doing the ordinary work of a city at 4 in the morning, indifferent to the emerald dress and the ruined woman inside it. At Reed Street, he touched her elbow. Only the elbow. He turned her east. Here. A small park. Iron benches. A single lamp. He did not sit. She did. "Everything I am going to say," he said, "you can verify before 9. My people are already sending the files to Han. She will forward them to your phone in the order that helps you understand." "Understand what?" "Who owns your ruin?" She looked up. The lamp behind him made a halo on his shoulder and left his face in shadow. She could see the line of the koi tattoo where the collar of the overcoat parted. She had not noticed, until this instant, that the tattoo ran onto the tendon of his neck like a signature. "Speak clearly," she said. "I don't have room tonight for the way you usually talk." He nodded once. "My name is Kang Ji-hoon. Publicly, I am the chairman of a private equity fund out of Seoul with a New York branch. That is the visible half. The invisible half is that I am the operating heir of a Korean corporate shadow syndicate. We are not what the movies call mafia. We are a family that owns paper, debts, subsidiaries, positions inside funds that no one thinks to look at. He waited to see if she would flinch. She did not. Go on. Whitaker Capital Partners is a small-cap fund managed by Bradford Whitaker III. He inherited it from his father, who inherited it from his father. It sits inside a holding structure called Ridgemont Legacy Group. Ridgemont borrowed heavily in the last cycle. When it could not roll the debt, a Cayman vehicle bought the paper at a discount. That vehicle is ours. We have owned Brad's leash for 18 months. He does not know it. He doesn't know his fund is yours. He knows a Cayman lender exists. He believes it is Swiss. His father believed the same thing until he died. It suits us. Naomi pressed the heels of her hands against the emerald silk over her knees. She looked at the pavement between her feet. It was not shaking. She was. And Brad and me? What does that have to do? 6 months ago, Brad approached your former partner, the man you called Elias. Her head came up. Elias moved to Portugal. Elias moved to Lisbon on a plane ticket paid by an intermediary of Brad's. Before that plane, he transferred 84 documents out of your studio's server, client contracts, preliminary drawings for 3 projects including the Ashford warehouse, draft budgets, draft correspondence. He also opened a second bank account in the studio's name that you never signed for. Wire transfers ran through it for 6 weeks. Small amounts, enough to leave a trail, not enough for you to notice on a statement you were too tired to read carefully. Stop. He stopped. She put her forehead down onto her fists. The emerald bracelet slid on her wrist. When she spoke again, her voice was flat. Why? Because Brad wanted the Ashford commission, and he could not get it clean. He did not have the skill. He did not have the invitation. He decided that if he could not have you next to him at that table, he would remove you from the table. The files he leaked at 2 a.m. were the ones Elias handed him. And you knew. I knew a week ago that the leak was being prepared. I did not know which night. I have known about Elias since March. She lifted her head very slowly. You knew since March. Yes. You let me run a studio that had already been robbed for 4 months without telling me. Yes. Why? He crouched. He did not sit next to her on the bench. He crouched in front of her so that his eyes were beneath hers, so that she was the one looking down. Because if I told you in March, he said, you would have burned it yourself, fired everyone, sued Elias, filed reports, and you would have lost, because the paper was not yet in your hands and Brad still had cover. I could not act until his own move was on the table. Tonight it is on the table. She stared at him. The wet pavement lay between them. You used me as bait. I let you keep working. I watched. I put Han within reach of your studio without your permission. I moved certain accounts payable to your favor without your knowledge. When you thought a supplier had extended you 30 extra days out of kindness, that was me. When your landlord did not raise the rent in April, that was me. When the invitation to Ashford arrived through Olivia's cousin, the cousin was real. The pathway was mine. I have been standing behind you for 4 months. You are asking me now if I used you as bait. I am telling you I used you as the reason to be there at all. You had no right. I had none. I did it anyway. Say what you actually did tonight. I sent Han with the emerald dress because I saw the red one, and I understood that Brad was already inside your head. Not the man Brad, his type. The type that convinces a talented woman that her body is her ticket. I wanted you to see yourself as I see you before you walked into that room. I wanted you to know that you were not the prey. That is very poetic for a man who has been reading my books for 4 months. I did not read your books. I read The Men Who Wanted to Eat You. I already knew what your book said. She stood up. He rose with her, not fast, not slow, the way tall men stand when they are trying not to alarm someone small who is not actually small. Walk, she said. They walked back the way they had come. Now she was cold. He took off the overcoat and hung it over her shoulders without asking. It smelled of the same clean cedar as the SUV. It was ridiculous. A black wool coat over an emerald gown at 4 a.m. in Tribeca, and she did not shrug it off. I want to see the files, she said. He nodded and lifted his phone. He typed 1 line. 2 seconds later, her phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then buzzed steadily like something angry inside her clutch. She stopped on the corner and opened it. The first document was a scan of Elias's plane ticket. Lisbon, 6 months ago. paid by a card ending in numbers she did not know. The second was a bank statement she had never seen, in the name of Bennett Hayes Studio LLC. Second account, opened electronically with a signature that was not hers. The signature was competent. It was the kind of forgery a man makes when he has watched a woman sign for years and thinks he has learned her hand. He had not. She could see the pressure was wrong at the B. The third document was a chain of emails between Bradford Whitaker and an address that resolved to a domain owned by Elias. In the second email, Brad wrote, "Get me the warehouse deck by Friday and we're square." In the fourth email, Brad wrote, "She's not going to know. She's tired. Keep it small. She's tired. Keep it small." Naomi read those 5 words twice. Then she read them a third time. Something behind her sternum, some soft, small organ she had been protecting for a very long time, went cold and hard and useful. She looked up from the phone. "Where is Brad?" "Currently, at his apartment on the Upper East Side. He is awake. He has been drinking since 3. Where will he be at 9? "On the sidewalk outside your building. On his knees. Reading whatever text you write for him. Or I will write it. Your choice. You can do that." "Yes." Legally. Legally, we can freeze Ridgemont's credit line at 8 because a covenant was breached the moment he sent files he does not own. His fund cannot make Monday's redemptions. He will be personally on the hook. His board will remove him by lunch. His name will be worth less than the paper it is printed on. That is legal. What happens on the sidewalk is a favor he agrees to in exchange for me not attaching his personal assets. He will sign the favor because he is a coward with a mother. And the leak. The story goes back at 4:30 because 2 editors owe me a favor and a third does not want to owe me one. By 7, the retraction is out. By 8, Marion Delacroix's assistant has been personally called. By 9, Marion will decide whether she still wants your signature on that contract. My guess is she will. Your guess? She is not a woman who takes her cues from Bradford Whitaker. She took her cue from you, last night, when you did not blink at 18 million. Naomi laughed. It was one short sound, sharp, involuntary. It surprised her more than him. "You have been building this move," she said, "for 6 hours. 6 months. Tonight was the last piece." They were at her door again. The dawn was starting to bleed into the sky over the East River, thin gray, not blue yet. A garbage truck rumbled at the end of the block. The world was preparing to be Tuesday. She stopped on the top step. She turned to face him. He was 1 step below her, which made them almost the same height for the first time. She could see his eyes properly now. They were not cold. They had never been cold. She had misread them. What she had called cold was stillness. The stillness of a man who does not move until he means to. Ji-hoon. "Yes. If I say do it, all of it, what is the cost to me?" 2 things. First, you accept that I did not ask permission for 4 months, and that I will not ask permission tonight, and that after tonight I will ask permission for everything. Second, you understand that from the moment my name is attached to the retraction, certain rooms in this city will know you are attached to me. That is a door that does not close. Certain rooms. The rooms where Brad thought he was safe. She thought about the studio floor, the coffee tin, the past due notice on the counter, Olivia asleep somewhere with her phone off, the ruby red dress on the closet floor, the 5 words on Brad's email, "She's tired. Keep it small. Burn it," she said. He did not smile. He nodded. "But I sign my own contracts from now on." That was never the question. It is now. Say it back. You sign your own contracts from now on. Everyone. Everyone. Good. She turned to unlock the door. Then she turned back. "One more thing." "Yes." "You do not do a single one of those things you did behind my back. Again, not the landlord, not the supplier, not the invitation. If I am going to be next to you, I am going to be next to you, not underneath you thinking a room is quiet because it is quiet. Agreed. Say it clean. I will not move a single piece for you without your knowing. If I break that, you walk, and I will not chase." Good. She unlocked the door. She looked at him one more time from the threshold. 6 a.m., she said. "You come back at 6, with coffee. Because at 9, I have to look like I slept." 6. She closed the door. Inside, she leaned her back against it and slid to the floor for the second time that night. But this time, the emerald dress did not feel like a costume. It felt like armor she had chosen. She sat on the floor with her arms around her knees for a long time. She did not cry. At 5:42, she got up. She washed her face. She rinsed her mouth. She sat on the edge of her bed and typed one message to Olivia. Don't come in yet. Wait for my call. Trust me. Then she typed a second message. We are still here. Then she got into the shower. At 6 exactly the buzzer went. She let him up. He walked in with 2 paper cups from the good place on Duane and a manila folder under his arm. He set the coffee on the counter. He set the folder next to it. He did not sit down. The retraction is out, he said. Marion's assistant has your meeting on the 11 o'clock. Brad is downstairs in a car. When you come out, you will walk past him. He will do what we discussed. You will not stop. You will not answer if he speaks. You will get into the SUV. Han will drive us to the studio. Olivia will meet us there at 8:30. Marion at 11. And if Marion still says no, then I have 3 other funds who will say yes by end of day. 2 of them are better than Marion. I did not tell you because I did not want you to relax. She looked at him. She almost laughed again. You are impossible. I know. Drink your coffee. They drank standing up, in her kitchen, at 6:04 in the morning, in silence. At 8:58, she came down the steps of her building in a fresh charcoal suit and low black heels, the emerald jewelry replaced by a small pair of gold studs, the hair pulled back into a low, neat knot. She had washed her face clean and put on nothing except the wine on her lips. She did not need armor now. She only needed to be seen. Brad was on his knees on the sidewalk. He had a folded piece of paper in his hands. His navy suit was wrinkled. His pink pocket square was gone. His face was the color of raw fish. 2 men in dark coats stood 1 pace behind him, hands folded, expressionless. A small crowd was starting to gather at a respectful distance, the way New Yorkers do, pretending not to look. He read from the paper without meeting her eyes. I, Bradford Whitaker III, publicly acknowledge that I circulated fabricated documents concerning Bennett Hayes' studio. Every claim I made was false. I fabricated them because I could not compete with Miss Bennett professionally. I apologize to Miss Bennett, to her partner Ms. Hayes, to her clients, and to Ms. Marion Delacroix, whom I attempted to deceive. I withdraw from Ridgemont Legacy Group effective immediately. I have no future in this city. He folded the paper. He kept his eyes on the pavement. Naomi walked past him. She did not stop. She did not answer. She reached the SUV. Han opened the door. Ji-hoon was already inside. She got in. The door closed. Inside the SUV, Naomi opened the folder on her lap. It held 3 pages. A summary of Ridgemont's frozen credit line. A copy of the retraction that was already running on 2 financial wires. A signed statement from Elias, dated 4:38 that morning, notarized in Lisbon by a man who had been woken up and paid enough to be pleasant about it. Elias's signature was correct on that one. He had not tried to disguise it. He was tired too, apparently. She read Elias's statement once, folded it, and put it back in the folder. She did not say anything about it. Ji-hoon did not ask. Han drove without speaking. The city was starting to fill in around them. Delivery trucks, women in running clothes, a man walking a dog the size of a rat wearing a small pink sweater. Ordinary Tuesday. Naomi kept looking at the ordinary Tuesday and let it be the thing her eyes did while her head arranged itself. At the studio, Olivia was already there. She had come straight from her apartment. Her curls were pinned back with a clip Naomi recognized from college. Her eyes were red. She did not ask anything. She walked up to Naomi and hugged her hard and quick and let go and said, "Coffee is on the counter." Marion's assistant confirmed at 10:50. "What do we sign?" Naomi laid out the folder on the drafting table. She pointed. Olivia read. She read fast, then slow, then fast again. The payment schedule. I'm rewriting it. 50% on signature. The old draft had 10. We are not floating this project on air anymore. If she wants the warehouse, she funds the warehouse. She'll do it. Yes. And the subcontractor clause. No one comes onto our sites we haven't personally cleared. No exceptions, no favors, no cousins. Olivia's mouth moved into something that was not quite a smile. You mean no more Elias? I mean no more Elias. No more Brad. No more men Marion likes because she plays tennis with their mothers. Our list. Our approval. Our signature. Got it. I'll redraft the language. Give me 20 minutes. She took the folder to her desk. Ji-hoon stood by the door. He had not moved past the threshold. He was waiting to be told whether he was staff or guest. Naomi looked at him. Sit down. Where? Anywhere that isn't between me and my partner. He chose the low bench by the window. He sat. He did not touch his phone. He watched the room the way a man watches a room he has paid for and does not intend to own. At 10:50, Han came up the stairs quietly and stood next to the door with the black portfolio under her arm. She did not speak. She did not need to. The room adjusted around her the way a room adjusts around a person who has answered a lot of questions before anyone thought to ask them. At 10:58, Olivia set the redrafted contract on the table. 2 pages. Clean. No footnotes. Every clause a sentence a tired woman could read at a glance. At 11, Marion Delacroix walked into the studio with her thin gold-rimmed glasses in one hand and a fountain pen in the other. She sat down at the reclaimed oak table. She read the 2-page contract Naomi had rewritten at 7 that morning. She read it twice. She looked up. You changed the payment schedule. Yes. You added a clause that says all subcontractors must be approved by you personally. Yes. You removed the exclusivity. Yes. Marion smiled a very small, very dry smile. She uncapped the fountain pen. Good, she said. She signed. She slid the pen across the table. Naomi signed. Olivia, standing behind her with tears she was refusing to let fall, signed as a witness. Marion stood, shook Naomi's hand once, firmly, and left. The studio was quiet. Olivia sat down on the edge of the drafting table and put her face in her hands and did what she had been refusing to do all morning. Naomi let her. She walked to the window. The sky over Tribeca was a clean, pale blue. It was going to be a bright day. Ji-hoon stood by the door where he had been standing all morning. He had not sat down once. He had not spoken once during the meeting. He had been furniture with a heartbeat. She turned to him. Come here. He walked over. You did what you said you were going to do. Yes. You will not do anything else without asking me. No. Good. She stepped up to him. She looked up into his face for a long second. She lifted her hand and, very lightly, pressed her fingertips to the koi tattoo, where it climbed the tendon of his neck. He did not move. You are not off the hook, she said. You are on a longer leash. Do you understand the difference? Yes. Good. She dropped her hand. She turned back to the room. Olivia had lifted her face and was watching the two of them with an expression that Naomi decided to deal with later. Get out, Naomi said to Ji-hoon. I have work. He almost smiled. Almost. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the frame. Naomi. Yes. 6 tonight. Dinner. I will ask this time. Ask. May I take you to dinner? She let him wait. 2 seconds, 3. Yes. He went out. She stood at the window until she heard the elevator doors close. Then she walked over to Olivia and put a hand on her shoulder. Olivia looked up. Naomi, what the hell just happened? We kept the studio. We kept our names. We are going to redraw the Ashford deck this afternoon because the version Elias sold Brad is trash, and we can do better. I need coffee. Real coffee, not the good place. The bodega. 2 sugars. Go. Olivia laughed, wet and startled, and got up and went for her coat. At 6:02, Naomi stepped out of her building in the midnight emerald dress again. She had put it back on, not because she needed it, because she wanted it. The emerald jewelry sat clean on her collarbone. The wine on her lips was fresh. She had done her own hair. The SUV was at the curb. Ji-hoon stood beside the open door in his black overcoat, the same one that had been on her shoulders at 4 in the morning. He offered his arm. She did not take it. She walked past him and got into the car on her own. She looked out the window at him standing there on the sidewalk with his arm still slightly extended, and she permitted herself, at last, a small, precise smile. He got in on the other side. He closed the door. Han slid the SUV into traffic. Naomi looked straight ahead at the divider glass. She spoke to it, not to him. A lioness does not wear the prey's clothes, she said. Neither does her king. Ji-hoon did not answer. He did not need to. Outside the window, Tribeca slid past in the last of the summer light, and somewhere inside a building she would never see the name of, a phone was ringing, and no one was picking up. That was not her problem anymore. It never had been. She had only, briefly, been persuaded to believe that it was. The SUV turned east toward the river. She caught her own reflection in the divider glass and did not look away this time. The woman who looked back had a jaw she recognized. She had not seen that jaw in the mirror for a long time. It had been waiting for her. Naomi crossed her legs at the ankle, folded her hands in her lap, and, for the first time in 6 months, breathed all the way out. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever built something with your own name on the door, only to watch men in tailored suits try to take it while smiling at you? Have you ever been handed a dress that fit you better than the life you were shrinking yourself into? And when the truth about who was really protecting you finally landed, did you have the courage to sign your own contracts from that day on? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, silent power, and refusing to be prey, leave a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.